for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Roll call, please.
Alderman Hoffman.
Here.
Alderman Rucker.
Here.
Alderman Ross.
Here.
Alderman Rose.
Here.
Alderman Osteen. Alderman Schuman. Mayor Robinson.
Here. All right, we do have a quorum. I was told Alderman Osteen is going to be a little late. Alderman Schuman will not be here. But, we have no unfinished business, no new business. The only thing tonight is the fiscal year 2024 operating budget draft 1, budget workshop 1. Discussions topics not completed will be carried over to the next workshop scheduled. Additional meetings may be scheduled if needed. So I'm going to turn this over to our City Administrator, Gina Woods, please.
Mike can take it if you would like. Mayor, members of the board, so you got your packets, and Jan, I want to thank her. She put together a nice little workbook for you this year. We hadn't done that in a while, so I'm hoping that's easier for you to go through. The first part of the budget summary, I'll go over the cash flow, which I know I just handed out tonight, and I'll kind of hit the highlights. We may likely get into more details on specific funds once we get to those specific nights, but I just want to kind of go over some trends and what you'll find in there. Same thing with personnel overall at the city, operation, maintenance, capital, and debt. And before we move into some of the departments that are on tonight. So the cash flow that I passed out is my lovely sheet. If you notice, I did take away all this history that made it look tiny. So it should be a little easier to read this year. And really the most important thing is the 23 estimate column and the 24 budget column, which matches what's in your budget. 22 I kind of just left there because that's just kind of where it ended up. I will say from 25 through 28, obviously this is a lot of estimating based on what departments think at that particular time. If we would have any master planning documents, they will also be tied into that. For example, sidewalk, pavement maintenance master plan, those type of things. Airports, the same thing, kind of a 5-year schedule that the airport layout plan outlines, and any grant revenue that was tied to any of those big expansion, you'll kind of see in there. So I'm going to highlight a few funds that if you notice in 25 and beyond, shows some negative dollars. Obviously a lot can change from one year to the next, but it kind of gives you a snapshot of how the cash is flowing. General fund, the only transfer into general fund, 2024, if you notice that's like a big dollar amount, 23 and 24. That has to do with the ARPA funds. And last year, the budget for general fund included CIT reimbursement up to park projects, one that's not going to get done this year. So in respect of what the board had approved last year, I kept that same dollar amount. And when we get to the overall capital sheet, I'll explain where you can find those details. So right now I just want to catch on the highlights. CIT transfers this year continues to be water and sewer. However, water transfers is debt only. So when we get to the debt schedule, we will be paying off some bonds, as we've been anxiously waiting to do for the last couple years. Water, for example, has 2026 will be its last minimum payment, and then sewer, we are actually paying, water 2026, sewer, this will be next year will be the last debt payment on the sewer bond. So as far as the CIT, one piece is always debt, debt minus any subsidy, and then the other CIT funds are really for capital expansion or capital reconstruction. Obviously, when we get to the sewer fund budget workshop 3, there might be more details on how we want to do that. I've got some recommendations as well about that. So the transfers from CIT are really going to general fund only in the respect of what you guys agreed to last year for a particular project, and the rest is water and sewer. Sewer transportation, the only transfers out that is tied directly to the airports, and that does fluctuate just because of what projects. We do have some big projects coming up in Lacey Fine Grand Glades that we're either finishing or starting in 2024, and any of those 10% matches normally needs to come from investment from the transportation fund. And for those of new, I guess Justin or I'll remind everybody, transportation fund is also applicable to multimodal transportation, and at this point, both our airports are that. So that can fluctuate from year to year based on operating revenue and expenses, as well as any capital expansion. Ambulance, this transfers into ambulance still, again, is general fund, and it is solely based on how to balance that fund. I do operating revenue, operating expenses, and whatever balance has historically always come from the general fund. With that in mind, the one thing that we will keep in mind when we talk about capital is we do have a new revenue line item that we will be collecting. Until Carrie and I can ensure that we're trying to keep it most confident, you're not going to see that outlined separately, just because it would directly give some insights into the particular business. So as we discuss capital, probably more specifically tonight being ambulance and parks and police, anything additional that you would like transferred, the use of that marijuana tax, that is at the board's discretion. At the board's discretion, that can change from year to year. So at this time, when I get down to the capital, I'll explain on what I did and what I didn't do as far as that, but keep that in your mind. As far as forecast for 25 through 26, again, the expenses, capital expenses are tied directly with what the departments have identified at this point as of known. As far as increase in payroll or increase in O&M or increase in revenues, it's very conservative. We're not sure how that will happen, but I've tried to keep consistent throughout. As far as the reserve part, every fund has a reserve detailed in the bottom, and I will say all reserves as of year-end 2024, in my mind, are considered met except sewer. And we'll obviously dive into sewer in much more detail come the 30th. I guess that's next Monday. So as far as 2024 is concerned, reserves are met. Except for sewer. Are there any questions that I can answer on the cash flow that will help something I'm not clarified, or help you as we go into the other parts?
How short is sewer going to be 224?
Well, a lot.
3 million.
If you go to your sewer 2024 budget, if you look historically on our restricted reserves. So again, let me clarify, the restricted reserve is what our reserve policy is mirrored. In other words, we have outlined that we want a cash piece and a cash piece to match average 3 years of O&M. And then we want a capital piece that's tied to a capital replacement plan. So I will say, sewer and water both, I have got to sit down with Public Works and update that, because we have had a lot of sporadic changes in sewer specifically, but water also, and it is worth our while to sit down and do a comprehensive redo of those two. But I've still just kind of been building on what I've been using. So if you notice at the end of 2024, $18,775 for a restricted reserve is unprecedented, and that'd be like pennies. In my mind, I think you should always have around $1 million in that. That should go up and down based on the capital schedule, but the $18,000 were, in my mind, if you noticed in 2022, we started going underneath that $1 million, and the activity that's happened in the last 18 months, or maybe even pushing 24, has been unprecedented in our system and very probably unexpected, right, wrong, and different. And so in the last 24 months, you've used 5 times as much as that piece that we would have been planning on. So I would like to find a way to get that back up, but I'm wanting to sit down with Public Works and really set realistic goals on what we need, therefore rates. Now, I will say the revenue for sewer does include in this anticipated 10% rate increase potentially. I will know more of that in December, because obviously we do need to balance out our rates. So. That restricted other, so anytime you see restricted fund reserves, that is our reserve policy. Restricted other is any other legally obligated reserves. For example, we do still have 2 bonds that we're working on paying off, and until those are paid off, CIT has a specific reserve for the water bond, and then so anything legally restricted or some self-restricting. And sewer is the example of this other self-restricting amount, this $2.14 million, and if you notice, it brings it back up a little bit. That is strictly what we have been putting back as a city, as determined by previous boards for our sewer reserve, our sewer treatment plan. Should we ever need to pay our portion of expanding the treatment plan or decide to put another treatment plan on the other side, we have specifically set that aside, and that's tied to the sewer treatment. And it's not legally required at this point, it's self-restricted, but we have guarded that with, worst case cash come, could be like the other reserve, but that's what that sewer restricted other is. Unrestricted just means it's not allocated or tied to anything.
So that was,
I'm sorry.
that was outlined for the sewer treatment plant expansion.
Well, I don't know what, Carrie, we officially call it, but it's tied to sewer treatment plant. So in other words, whether the joint sewer board, am I correct on that, or am
I don't
it's
think
tied for sewer treatment?
on this, just the city side.
Yeah, it's like I said, self-restricted. It's not illegal, but we pass boards, and that's just been the,
I have some real problems with that because I don't think we need that much.
well, again, that is
Everything we've been finding out, and
direction.
everything that we've been delving into has been telling us that our plant is more than sufficient now. There's a piece of that puzzle that you and I are working on, that once that piece is done, then I think that would give us a true picture, and maybe we need to, do we continue to add to that?
Well, for sure gets its own interest. At that point, this might just be the interest game. I don't know that we've specifically put.
Its revenue comes from permitting.
So we do have revenue in there besides interest.
But we have self-restricted, yeah. Well, I can add that to the list, and we can have those conversations another time. That would definitely, potentially could help sewer in
Well, I
today's
think that
cash
the
needs.
one piece of the puzzle though that needs to be completed, which is on yours and my back, is the capital replacement program for the plant.
Yeah.
Because we might have to dip into that for some of the capital, depending on how that shakes out.
So on your sewer plant, when it says plant capacity fee that we collect, that is, the plant capacity fee that goes in there.
That's the what, I'm sorry?
Plant capacity fee,
Right.
those dollars go for the sewer treatment plus its own interest that it gains in that account. So let me pull the ordinance, whatever ordinance is tied to the plant capacity fee. Let me do some research, and see what are options, or if any, and how we may or may want to modify that. I mean, that at least will have an effect.
Gina? You probably explained it, but I would appreciate if you'd explain it one more time to me. I'm looking at that restricted other and looking for 2023, excuse me, the amount of 558,000, and then it drops down to 32,000. I don't understand that difference.
Okay, good question. So in general fund, we normally have only around 30 to 35,000 that's restricted other. And that has to do with special police projects, court bond, some things that, we have to do. Well, if you remember, we got ARPA funding in 2022. So that 982,000 was our 30-something that we have to keep for the little bit of accounts we can't spend, and the ARPA money we got. So we have to allocate that ARPA money by the end of 2024 and have it spent by 2026. So in 2023, we had budgeted a couple sewer projects that we're going to use up that 950 something, whatever it ended up being. Those did not get done, but the ones that are expected to get done will be transferred to sewer and augment that project. So the 558 is what's officially left in 23 that will follow projects in 24. So we hope to have it all spent in 24, so that's why you'll go back down to 32.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have two. I'm sure everyone else knows this, but I don't get it. Why is the revenue for sewer, why is it such a drastic jump? From 5.3 to 9.1 million, then back down to 6?
Well, revenue are all the revenue line items, so when you're transferring money from the CIT account, it goes into the revenue, so you're not gonna have that necessarily repeated in the next year. So those are one-time revenues or grant money, things that are going into the revenue line item that's not repeated.
Are those broken down somewhere?
In your budget, you can see 2024, actually all three of these. If you go to the sewer account, go to the sewer revenue page, which is 73, this is all the breakdown of all the revenue line items. So the big swings, well, one I know has to do with ARPA and transfer in from CIT, transfer in from general fund, which is your ARPA, and your CIT. So another big reason that 24 jumps is because, and again, I'll go through details when we hit sewer next Monday, but
I was just wondering if it was based on usage.
well, some pieces are. Some pieces are.
So as I understand this, we are committed, I'm assuming that, so let me just start with January 1st or January 31st of 2023, the forecast that we have for this forecast, okay? The debt services transferred under funds from CIT moved from 1.7 million, I think, to 4.7 million, round numbers, okay? Approximately 3 million more. My impression is that is from the operations of the sewer department, is that right?
Are you talking 23 to 24, or what?
24 debt service transfer to other funds for the CIT.
Oh, yes.
4.7 million, okay? As of January 31st of this year, that number was 1.7, and I can move it around on my computer, but I'm in the ballpark, plus or minus 100,000. Okay, so round numbers, there's 3 million more being planned to transfer from CIT to the sewer fund. I assume all that's sewer.
Yeah. You're talking about the change in 23?
Yeah, in other words, in the last 8 months, we are now projecting in 2024 to transfer 3 million more than we were projecting. And we're planning on transferring 1.3 million more in 25, and this debt service is not going up, right?
Now, the debt service is a separate line.
Right, but debt service part, oh, okay, it is a separate
Zero.
line, there was nothing there, so.
Right.
Okay.
Let me make sure I'm on my numbers right. Yeah, we budgeted in 2023 to use 3.6 million. CIT was transferring out 3.6 million. 3.3 million was going to
Right, but I'm talking about the 2024 forecast, okay?
So 2024, that is upping 1.2, a little over $1 million. The
In
difference
CIT?
between 23 to 24, what's leaving CIT?
Yeah, 3 point. Okay, I'm not reading this right. Okay,
So
it
let
is
me-
over $1 million, it isn't 3, and I may be wrong, but somewhere, it looks to me like there's another couple million also in subsequent years, and I believe that is because of the increased costs of the sewer that we're expecting.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess from a global or a macro standpoint, we're under this impression that in 2 or 3 years that we can basically spend a bunch of money on the sewer system, and then if you look in the out years, all of a sudden we're going to quit spending money like that on the sewer system. Kind of what it looks like, because all of a sudden
okay,
the
so let
transfer
me
to
add
other
a-
funds drops a whole bunch.
So let me add another couple tidbits that I did not add on the cash flow. Let's just go sewer. So on
Sewer?
Yeah, sewer cash flow. So 2 pieces here. 2024 budget has 5.2 million, almost $5.3 million in capital. That is very impressively high. There are some that are being carried over from 2023, but there's a lot of new projects. Now I have some options when we talk about sewer to take that away. But if I look at 25 to 28, and I got the department's requested estimates, like this is where we think the projects that we're gonna need to do in sewer from 25 to 28. There is 7.1 million over a 4-year period to Tantera Estates, which we know, in my opinion, we need to hold off until we can figure out what's going on with that contract and/or how do they subsidize their own improvements. But in addition to that, there was $8.6 million. I did not flood that into the cash flow because, one, I know sewer doesn't have it. So I kind of went through just to guess from 25 to 26, but basically, not counting Tantera Estates, which is outside, different area, another 8.6 million is expected to have to be invested in the sewer system. Now, the comment that I was gonna make when we talk about sewer and water, but I'll just, for you guys to think about. We are at the tail end of our bonds. We are paying off, we have been through this 22-year process now. Is it time for the city to do a professional assessment of what is the next 10-year investment in our sewer system? It's kind of like, okay, I paid my home off now, it's time to reconstruct, time to, you know, I do not know, but that is a common sequence of events that happens. You know, we've paid off our initial investment from the late 80s to the early 90s of our sewer system. If we have all this growth and we know unprecedented things have happened, maybe more maintenance over the last 18 months. No, I don't think it's going to stop. But until we can get a snapshot, same thing with Tantera, I'd say the same advice. We need to have that area assessed, what truly needs to be invested over a 5, 6, 10-year period of time, and how do we pay for that? Do we pay it out of cash money with our CIT that specifically is subsidized water and sewer, specifically why that tax got put on the ballot back in the 80s? Or do you go bond and you use CIT and or sewer and pay the payments? I think the city is at a point where that has to be discussed more and decided. But that's the 2025 through the 2028 estimate. So 2024, everything that was required, well, not everything, and we'll show you on my list where there's some things that didn't make it on the project. But before we finish 2024, I think those things really need to be assessed and get some opinions and have a plan. Because I can show you that sewer is not gonna pay for it. Now, ratepayers don't necessarily pay for expansion. That's how you get it from your impact fees. Your ratepayers need to pay for their maintenance and debt for the system. So I think that's something that will have to be discussed and something planned out, because with everything that we expect that we may have to spend in the next 5 years, unless you're gonna use all of CIT, that's how you're gonna pay for it. Or you're gonna go do another master plan, you know, basically what I call it, just like here's what this area needs and here's how we're gonna plan to grow, because if we do grow as fast as we're gonna go, that it's also your opportunity to expand where you need to expand.
So could I just, like brass tacks, we either use all of our savings or we take out a nice little loan and do it that way?
And the only way the city can go for a loan in this case is go to the people and do a ballot and bond issue, SRF. There are minimal circumstances where cities, if you ever borrow money, you gotta ask your voters, unless it's a lease purchase, and that's usually like an ambulance or a tangible, vehicle. Other than that, your choices are use cash, or save cash, use cash, or go out and do a bond.
Can I ask another matter? When was the last time a bond was on the ballot and did it pass?
Yes, we are getting ready to pay off the 2005 and the 2007 refinance, and those were refinanced. So basically, we're at the end of our bonds, and you figure those are anywhere from 20 years too. So, Carrie, you might know the last one that went to the ballot. I just know the issues that are saving here.
What we were paying off was about 5 million for sewer, and the rest was to do the brand new water system, 32 million.
35.5, I thought it was, or 32.
So the city hasn't taken any kind of bond legislation action in 15 years?
20?
20? That seems impressive.
It is. I mean, they saved cash to build City Hall. We saved back water funds to spend on the $900,000 Swiss well, so we historically have done good at that, but then there has been times where you need to.
Well, I'm just thinking if there's a time to do it, everyone in the city knows that the sewer's a problem. Not many people are gonna vote against fixing the sewer line, just to the thought.
I don't think it has to be solved with this budget, but you have to be cognizant of what that is for 25 to 28 while you're considering this budget. Like I said, I've got some other options on sewer where I think some of those projects can wait and rightly should wait. But like I said, I don't wanna get off schedule, I do wanna have that conversation, but I wanna make sure one kind of understood what was in here. So water, let me go back to some of the same comments, like what is or isn't in water. Water is loaning sewer 950,000. Now, we have never done this, and I even talked to Carrie, I'm like, make sure this is legal, like that we can borrow funds against. I do think that sewer needs to pay water back, and I think it should happen sooner than later. And I think I have that forecasted for 25, but again, sewer's got some big negatives. However, even with that 950,000 and get that back, the expectation of capital does mirror what the department has come up with, except for a treatment plant that is being averaged about $4.4 million. They've been working on this manganese, the treatment plant, so that'll be a big investment. But I suspect, all else being equal with water, sewer pays water back, we continue on the same savings schedule that we've been on with water. I think we would have cash to pay for that in 29. Now, I think departments was wanting 26, we can talk about that, but there is a way for water to pay for that. Now, whether that's the only big master planning item in water coming up, I don't know. It's been also a while till we've had somebody review how we're growing and how fast we're growing, and is there opportunities to grow. I have a feeling that there will be a time where, there may be another well. It depends on what area. Swiss Village, that was a big deal because we only have the one tower on the side, but we have now the second well. Well, the first well is the one that needs the treatment. So water, I know it looks like, oh wow, it's got, some good unrestricted funds. I would propose not to mess with those so we can pay for the treatment plant, which it's not in here, but I have it starred for 2028. We will not have enough cash in 2026 to pay for that, but we would potentially have it by 2028.
Plus, we would be able to acquire some grants.
Yeah, and that's always a possibility. I don't estimate it. If we get that even makes it better.
So I'm still trying to track down this question. And right now, we're showing a transfer to other funds out of CIT in 2024, $4.75 million.
Yes.
Okay. The forecast sheet that we had at the end of January this year showed we expected to spend $1.7 million in the transfer.
Richard, I don't have that with me,
So if we need to take that offline, that's okay.
Yeah.
But again, I think as you look at these numbers, it looks like that, for example, in 2027, 2028, we're looking at $1.4 million to transfer out on the current forecast. Right?
Yep.
Okay, so and I realize in 24 and 25, there's some debt that isn't in 27 and 28, right? But all of a sudden, there's this big blip in how much is being transferred out. My understanding is that sewer, and my concern is that what we're doing is generally is this, that we're spending CIT to subsidize rates, okay, in my mind. Right? Because in my mind, the sewer system, the water system should pay for themselves.
Right, and we've always had a piece that's been subsidized by CIT.
A piece, what does that mean? Is that the debt service?
Debt.
Right, but there won't be any debt.
No, it's
Within
going
a couple
down.
of years, right,
Right.
okay? So, again, it looks like what we're doing is, and we can talk about this some other time, somebody else we can talk about the other night, but we're spending a bunch of money in the sewer department for 3 years, and then we think it's gonna be okay. And I just don't know, I'm not convinced that that's the case.
No, it's not. And like I said, there's 8.6 million in here over a 4-year period that is not, I do not have in the expense line items.
Say that again, there's 8.6 what?
So based on the capital schedule that I got from the departments, there is Tantera stays 7.1 million, which is not showing when it says capital. So if you're looking at your sewer,
Yes.
and you're looking at capital,
Yes.
2025 is just a little over $1 million, 26 is 1.7 million,
24 is 5 million.
20 more, yeah. So 25 through 28, there is 8.6 million of other capital expansion / reconstruction that I did not plug in because I knew it doesn't have the money. That's what I'm saying. Sewer is gonna have to find 8.6 just for our system internally, our city system, and then another 7.1 to deal with Tantera. So subset 14, 15, so you're talking about $15 million altogether. And I know we are very intentional to want to do our homework to figure out what it's going to mean for Tantera Estates, because those users should pay for that. But that 8.6 is a combination of capital, not just maintenance. You're right, sewer rate users need to pay for their own maintenance, but capital pieces are not as a big a piece as the ratepayers.
Well, I think that depends on the type of project. I mean, if it's
That's
capital.
what I'm saying,
Right,
I didn't break down this 8.6, that's not up here.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, it just, in my mind, what we're doing is we are, we are still keeping rates extremely low. I've always felt like sewer rates in this town have been extremely low. Some has become very new system, right? And now it's a 20-plus-year-old system, depending on where you're at, or 40, okay? And we have debt out there that didn't quite get paid off before we're having to invest in the system. The question is, should that be money we take from CIT to keep those rates down, or should we sooner or later reflect the cost of maintaining the system? Not building it out, I get that, maintaining the system in our rates. Then based on what I'm seeing is the rates need to take a nice big chunk, but I realize in capital versus,
Maintenance.
it can be part of the maintenance of the system, okay? So more to talk about, just.
Well, we did increase the rates, and I don't disagree with you that it needs another increase, which I had stated that when we did, which I'm kind of glad I waited, not that it wouldn't have, because so much has happened in the last 12 months when I did I brought you the last rate increase last January, based on what we thought we knew at this time last year, and it started in May or April. At that time, I was like, no, we are going to get through this year, and more craziness happens. So I will have that to you guys in December, the same thing in a couple months. So yeah, we do definitely need to up our rates to not subsidize as much. But CIT has always had a subsidy piece for the capital expansion. But I did not identify to that granular detail. In your budget, it is included a 10% rates increase in the revenue projection for partial year.
So would you consider what we think may need to be done at Tantera Estates, whatever the number is for it, would you consider that expansion or maintenance of the system?
Well, I'm not talking about Tantera Estates because I think the Tantera users need to pay for that $7 million.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's just say we have to replace $3 million worth of concrete line somewhere, okay, over a couple of years. Whatever that number is, $3 million, would that be capital expansion? Or would that be maintenance of the system?
So the question what I always ask my engineers when I'm trying to figure out whether, because you got SDCs in there too that we haven't talked to, is the work you're doing capable of adding more users, or is it just making the current user system fixed? And we've been more into that latter section, and so that is more direct ratepayers. But if you're building, replacing a 12-inch line and you decide, you know what, we need a 24. So that 12-inch piece is truly your maintenance of that current users. But that 24 is like, no, we're gonna get new users. So that's how we can kind of differentiate. So it may not be project by project, it may be pieces of a project.
Okay. More to come.
More to come. Okay. Any more questions on the cash flow? Give you an idea as we go through the budget.
Just so I know, we've got, in order to raise rates, that does have to get voted on by people, we can't just do it.
No, we do that periodically. Our ordinances that say that I review rates every year, and we just had a rate increase earlier this year. And I will be bringing you other recommendations here at the end of the year, but to raise rates now,
We can just.
it's not a tax.
And do we know, I know you said something about doing a synopsis of our sewer system. Do we know, are rates competitive with other surrounding cities?
Every time I do a rate review, I always do what the others pay. And we aren't the highest, we're not the lowest, but we definitely are not the highest.
We shouldn't be the lowest, but maybe we should be the highest.
Well, to come.
I don't know, we shouldn't be the highest, to be quite honest, because we've got a force system that nobody else has. And the fact that, ratio of pumps per population. Yeah, is like
Yeah.
crazy off the charts. We are an extreme anomaly because we've got these two huge hills we've got to move up and down over on this end, all depending on that.
I just think it's a good time to raise rates. I mean, because everyone in the city thinks it's It's a problem.
All due respect to Gene, I didn't think we raised the rates enough last time. And I don't know that and I'm not convinced that what she's planning on is enough this time. I'll just say it that way.
Let the cards fall. I promise I will bring you
Fair
options.
enough. Can't wait to play poker with you, Jason.
So,
Okay, well, I'm sure we will refer to the cash flow numerous times, and I know we'll get more into the water and sewer. Personnel expenditure summary, page 5. It starts on page 5, which is basically the dollars and cents. And I know Mike Ray did a handout, and I will let you answer his question. I just want to go over an overview, and then I'll let him kind of go through what he did that I'm going to probably miss. Overall, so how you read this chart is the yellow is the new budget. So the difference between last year's budget and this year's budget is 9%. Budget to budget, I know, is one way we calculate. When we budget positions, any vacant position, this year, all vacant positions, I range anywhere from 80 to 85%. We have, that might be a little optimistic, that every vacant position will be filled in the first quarter. And I'm not saying there's some changes, like dispatch might be a little different, I'm not sure without looking at the details. But overall, if there's a current vacancy, or in the case of the new positions, I don't budget the whole 12 months for all benefits and all salaries, because there is always a time lag. Now, we naturally have attrition where people are coming and going, but I do budget that everybody that's in a seat right now, in a position, is budgeted for the 12 months of the next year. Any vacant positions, and even the new positions, I assume that they're gonna take the most extensive healthcare plan. In other words, they are gonna take the full family for all benefits. So at the end of the year, we always see a little difference on what we budget. I try to do it conservatively on expenses, so I'd rather be under later than over, but you will see a jump then from 23 projected year end to 24 budget. It shows 22%. Well, we had a lot of coming and goings last year. Even though I think, as Mike showed you, minus the outlier of public works, our turnover is going down. So I am happy about that trend, but we have had some success in the last several months of some of the harder filled positions. We're at least at a higher number than we were this time last year in PD or dispatch. And we've got good applicants. I mean, the process is on. So I am optimistic that the positions that are in there, are gonna get filled. But I probably have overexpensed. Another 2 parts to that you will see in 2024, we did the compensation study, which we did all jobs this time because it had been a few years. The new pay plan that I'm proposing is moving all the levels, the floors and the ceilings up. The good news is we have very, very limited people that are affected directly from that, because we have naturally started our starting wages higher over the last 12 to 18 months. So just because we're just now moving the floor and ceiling, we've already had those people that was well within that first quartile. There are several positions that did move up. Some of these did not surprise any of us, that we've kind of been paying on that. But I am asking the board to consider a 4% premium again. Inflation's been high. If you move the floor and ceilings up on the pay plan, everybody of us that are still here, that's how we got behind in compression. So I think every employee, in addition to their merit increase, I have budgeted 4% for all the current employees as of January 1st, because all the new employees, that will just happen organically. So that would likely average an average employee to get anywhere from 7 to 8%, depending on what their merits come in. Last year we did a 5.25, and the year before we did a 7. That has been worked very well because we have people moving through the pay plan. You're not having as much compression on the current ones that are already here. So that increase, I guess you could really say the increase from the 23 budget to the 24, year in 23 to where we're going to project in 24 is we're filling positions. The cost to do a 4% premium for every current employee as of January 1st is just under 200,000. It's like it was 197.5 or something. So that would be all our current employees for that premium. I really think that puts us in a good position. Again, I know when we first decided to do the premiums, I estimated that 2 years would get us where our current employees needed to be because of compression from many, many years ago. And I do think one more year will be beneficial. And then there are 3 new positions, and I did hand out just a quick synopsis in case you're curious on what those are. And I'll be glad to answer any questions on that, but Mike, I know I probably took some of your thunder on that. If you have any questions on what he handed out, oh man, that was the thanks for those. This was Mike's first year going through and doing the Excel sheets, and I say I appreciate him so much. A lot of help, but I did take his numbers and kind of, like I said, put some more, on vacancies and things like that, so.
So as you will notice, compensation pay plan, at the very top of the page, Jen already went through some of what the changes, the expectations will be for '24. Again, we're seeing interest rates are still high, 22-year high mortgage rates. It's putting pressure on the employees. And then with our compensation plan that we just did, mainly where we're trying to keep the employees in the middle of the quartile, adjusting these levels are going to push more of the employees down towards that first quartile. The problem with doing that is if the around this shifts a little bit next year, the starting pay goes higher than our minimums, we risk losing those employees. We've gone through, we did the full compensation study for all positions. Normally it's about 20% every year, but this year we've done every position that we had. And so for next year, we don't expect to need much in the way of that compensation plan budget, although there are some funds sitting that we're requesting just in case we need those. As mentioned before, the staffing for 2024, we're asking for additions for an IT specialist, a communication specialist, an HR assistant / clerk, and then another water technician and full-time paramedic.
Where are you looking, Mike?
On my handout?
Sorry.
So do we have the paramedics, how many do we have now?
Currently, 2 full-time, 3 full-time currently. Yes, then 2 part-time, some that are very minimal part-time, and so they're trying to fill in with hours here and there.
The reason I did add as far as a body count for paramedic, and it's really twofold. One, we've had just some interesting situation on how schedules and stuff has worked, and we've gotten caught. I know there was a little miscommunication about, did we put this job out, and Todd and I talked, and Mike was going by the schedule, and I said, you know what? We are going to add another body. That one, again, is not funded for the whole body, but if we get to fill the 2 paramedic positions, that's just less hours the part-timers are gonna work. So really the bucket of money changes a little bit, but the use of those hours should make it easier for Tommy and her scheduling and relying on part-time, which in turn then should lower any overtime that's not your scheduled overtime. So.
One of those part-time be moving into that full-time position?
If they're interested.
It's possible, is that the expectation? Possible.
And
We
then,
would hope so, but
yeah.
we can't guarantee.
A lot of our part-time is full-time somewhere else, if we can recruit them away from where they're at full-time, is a possibility.
if you do go to page 8 of your book, I had a handout as a replacement, and I have to thank Richard for this because he was questioning me today, and I was like, oh, I think that column's wrong. The handout is here. This is the correct full-time equivalents, and there's a couple reasons why we do full-time equivalents, but we had some moving of some deletions, like Mike said, some requests from other departments, some shared employees movement, but overall, if you look at the bottom, 2023, we ended up 112.05, and we're asking 115. So just equivalent of about 3 positions between all the movement of the other funded.
So would you rather we wait and ask the questions at the end or as they come up in a second? So the question about the full-time equivalent ambulance, I'm not trying to track this either. The sheet that you handed out says that, I'll make sure I got this right, that we're at almost 1.5 people as a full-time equivalent in ambulance. Now, I get the fact that we may have a bunch of more part-time people, but the full-time equivalent shouldn't change.
So if you look, but full-time equivalent change, it depends on the breakdown of the part-time hours, because I equivalent that. So if you go to page 81, here is, or 81, I guess. Right now we have 7 full-time. Last year that would have been 6. We've always had spots for 10 part-time, but it was like a 0.9. I couldn't even tell you how Cindy and I would have calculated that last year, but this year I just said, okay, you've got 10 bodies that are either paramedic or EMT, and they, on average, show a work equivalent of a 0.2 of a whole week. So I'm really calculating the 10 part-time bodies as 2 full-time bodies. So that might change your little points when you look at my full-time but I did purposely add a paramedic into the mix, and now there's 4 instead of 3 from last year.
I mean, I think what matters is how many hours you schedule or your manager schedules people in that department.
Yeah.
Correct. So my question would be then, are we expecting a significant change about 20% in additional hours being scheduled? Because if we are, then the full-time equivalent, then we are increasing. Not what we can get them to work, I'm talking about what we want them scheduled.
There's a difference there.
Yes, there is.
You are adding full-time.
Right.
Yeah.
Full-timers will work basically 48 hours a week.
Okay.
And
Part-timers make up for
part-timers
that.
will fill in.
Yeah, I know that varies from probably 6 hours, or 12 hours to 30 hours, right? So what I'm trying to say is if in all of these numbers, the question I'm asking is if we're not using any more people to run the ambulance department, we're not paying more hours, we might be paying more salary from a full-time versus part-time. If we're using the same amount of hours, then the subject's moot, and we can move on.
Richard?
But I didn't hear the answer.
I have, when I budgeted from what we budgeted in 23 to what we budgeted in 24, did increase about 15%.
So we need.
Well, dollar-wise.
Dollar.
Paramedics do make more than EMTs, and this is the one department when I mentioned that as we move the floors and ceilings of everybody's pay levels, we had very minimal effects to the department because we had already been starting our wages higher than that new level. However, ambulance does have a few part-timers and stuff that need to be brought up. And so that's also calculated in 24.
Okay. Move on, go ahead. I have some others, but I'll let Michael finish.
Yeah.
Are we budgeting any staff for holidays?
Staff budgeting.
We do run a second truck on Memorial Day, Labor Day, 4th of July.
Okay, so we are budgeting for that. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
And still in the staffing, removals, we're looking at removing that municipal electrician position. It was budgeted last year, that didn't really work out the way it was intended to. And then also removing the seasonal transportation technician, just sticking with the part-time and full-time transportation. We're realigning the GIS technician from the Public Works Department to the Engineering Department. And then the department secretary that's currently split between the city planner and building department will be 100% for the building department. This year we saw 21 full-time staff depart from the city, of which 16 were voluntary. 5 of them were involuntary terminations, and makes our turnover rate 23.3%. A lot of that, as you remember, we had a big issue in the sewer department first half of the year. And so most of those employees left. That department was down to 2 employees running the entire thing. We're back up to almost full staff. I mean, we've got 3 positions currently open for that, but everybody seems to be working well, get along. Haven't had any real big issues that I've heard, right, Wilty? Right. Okay. Now, to get rid of the 8 employees that left that department in the first half of the year, the turnover rate's closer to 14.4%. Now, it's down below what we had in 2022, which was 17.9%, and from a high of 30.1 the year of COVID-19. For benefits next year, again, our benefit plan year is July 1st to June 30th. So the budget for next year is including a half split, but we're not anticipating too much of a increase as far as much of an increase in health insurance as was predicted last year. I think last year it was budgeted to increase 10%. Our actual increase was nothing. We did switch to UMR and realized some cost savings with NPR through that. So next year, the budget is 2 to 3% increase in health insurance premiums. And then for dental and vision, roughly the same, not expecting too big of a change on that. Our life and short-term disability insurance may see another 5% increase like it did this year. I'm not expecting a 5% increase, but it may happen. And then with all of our loggers conversations, for 2024, the retirement plan is going to stay the same. It'll be the 6% of employee salary with a 1% match when the employee puts in the match, unless directed differently by the board.
And this next line, I know you said has been. So my intention was to get an ordinance in front of you guys at the last board meeting to consider updating our holiday schedule as well as update our vacation acquiring, or how we acquire vacation. When we talked a lot about recruitment and retention and being competitive, and what we realized when we were just looking at other things was how our employees get vacation or when they acquire vacation is very outdated compared to not only surrounding cities and counties as well as holidays. So I will say the budget, although vacation acquiring doesn't have a cash flow budget necessary here, it just runs on scheduling, but the holiday pay, you will see the police and 911 and ambulance go up. You will see it at the packet you're going to get them this week, that change of updating holidays to match county, Camden County, Miller County, the state, and federal, and I'll give you guys the whole comparison. And that will add a few holidays, 15 at minimum, 17 at max, because of the couple floating things we have, and right now we have 11 at minimum and 13 max. So, but that will be in front of you guys next week. So that does have a cash effect because of the way our shift workers get paid out holiday pay. Everybody else just, they just get paid at the regular rate. The other thing, and sorry I didn't mention also that you will find is the request to add board health benefits is also budgeted as such, but you guys will see that and discuss that at the next meeting.
Salary.
I don't know the salary part. You'll have to just remind me.
Recommendations
the
will be
dollars.
staying the same next year
Double the salary.
until we get more information. Meetings.
What about,
So,
okay, that I will have to get that budgeted. I did not budget. I budgeted with the health insurance, but I did not budget per meeting expenses or any of the salary.
Maybe just think this too.
they currently, they get Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off.
Yes.
So I know Carrie and I talked about this. It seemed like there were days where City Hall was open where nobody else in the city was open.
A lot of this is to align with the local county, state, local municipalities around us where they do have Juneteenth, where they do have Truman Day, and a couple of others. What it do is basically split up our President's Day, and instead of having just President's Day, it'd be Lincoln, President's Day, and then Truman. So it's most of the area already has these. It's just we're trying to bring ourselves in line with those.
Anyway, just so you know, that is budgeted. It obviously depends on what happens at the next meeting, but that was included.
And those days for floating holidays.
Yeah.
And a few of them would be, yes.
And when I say floating, we already currently have, if a holiday, any Friday preceding a Thursday holiday, we are off paid. And it was requested, I think, by Alderman Ross that we should do any Monday preceding a Tuesday holiday, include that as a holiday. So that's when I say we have those, anyway, but you'll get the list. It's Camden County, actually, as our immediate area, Camden County had the most holidays, believe it or not. Miller County was just short a couple. They mirrored state plus had like the Thanksgiving, following Thanksgiving and Christmas Eve. We had those, whereas the state, that's up to the governor.
I mean, it's just terrible for morale when people, when they're not getting holidays off.
Well, and looking at the employee survey, that is one of the big critiques, is that we need more holidays off. So I know you guys haven't seen that yet, but that is it.
Just remember though, that that's a cost.
It is a cost.
Because you're paying there's about 90, or I don't know, the large percentage of our employees that when you give them that day off, it doesn't really cost us anything extra. But once we do that, then our police, ambulance, and dispatch, they get paid extra. Right. Because they're working. So I'm not opposed, I'm just making a point.
And that's why
Anytime people think that, oh, well, if we give them another holiday, it's really not costing us anything because they're already being paid. Well,
if you look at your holiday line item and when you see the double digit 50% or whatever,
It's
40%.
about $70,000 in this budget is what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's the line item. When I say it's budgeted, that's that line.
I'm looking at this is probably a crazy question, but I'm looking at this medical vaccination increase, $25 per immunization for flu.
Yes.
They can go to Hy-Vee and get a free one. It's just fun.
Our occupational medicine clinic, that's what they charge us to come on site and do the vaccines for
So
employees.
why can't we send them,
I don't see why we couldn't.
I mean,
Most of them, the medical insurance that they carry through
they
the city,
send free flu shots at
they
Hy-Vee.
can.
I've seen it, I'm getting notices
I'm sorry?
through Walgreens, I get notices all the time, come get your free shot.
Walgreens, yes, too.
I just got my COVID shot yesterday.
Free.
Yeah, that's why I almost didn't come today.
I mean,
The puny.
I'm just, you're Phil Judy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that was just a carryover. That line item has been in the budget before. I was just doing an
sure, I
just trying to
understand.
say, hey, we have 60 employees that want to take advantage of this, $25 each, this is what it's going to cost us. Now, judging by the last vaccination event we had, the budget on that could probably be half.
Well,
There's a convenience to do it here because they're on the clock and everything, and it does hopefully keep our employees coming to work. So that $25 is, hopefully gonna keep the flu down, not only to them, but the flu down to the rest of the staff. So as much as I do mine at Hy-Vee, okay, but I do see an advantage to that to
just didn't want to spend the money.
I was going to say, and that's the operations and maintenance. I didn't know if you wanted to get into that
Well,
this
his-
evening.
No, I saw that,
yeah.
sorry.
Unfortunately, his is on another night, which I know Mike Ray isn't going to be here, so I did ask him to put this so I could handle his budget for Thursday.
But a lot of the operations and maintenance, a lot of that's not going to change. The ones that are going to change, if the HR assistant / clerk is approved, it's basically just adding for training conferences for them, and then any kind of programs and development. Also for programs and development next year, it's a big, I would like to do leadership training. We put some of our supervisors and managers through that. I've been working with State Fair Community College. They've got programs where we could rotate through every year or so and have different leadership trainings that they offer either in Sedalia or on site here.
That's good.
And again, on site's going to be more expensive than going to Sedalia. And again, we've got the
yeah, but is it
fuel expenses.
Yeah, it is gonna be more expensive. By the time you have to pay travel and.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think really tonight on the overall personnel, your thoughts, what more information you need on, agree with the premium, not agree, how do we, that's the kind of direction that I'm looking at as far as individual or some overall. And I know each department, we talk about them, but for positions, what more information can I give you, or do you want to hold that, come back to overall? We've done that before, come back to overall personnel.
I just want to say thanks to you and everybody else. I think the communication specialist is vital to the city moving forward. Richard, I've had some heated, or not heated, but some interesting spirited conversations about it. But I do appreciate everyone. I like the write-up. I'm not sure it is, I like it the way it is, though Richard and I were discussing this last week. I'm not so sure about the economic development role, and if that maybe can't be folded in to that role in some capacity, and eliminate that role. I'm kind of open to that. I just wonder what anybody else thinks.
I think that there is enough involvement for a full-time economic development person. I wasn't happy with what our last one did.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure what he did.
Well,
What he didn't do
try
is
to
he
not
didn't
get
jump
into
in.
past people. Can I add some
What that
sense?
position needs, let me just restate, what that position needs to do, that position needs to be the most expertise person we have next to Cole on TIFs. Needs to understand it inside out, upside down, and that's what that person needs to do.
Yeah, I
They
wasn't
need to
thinking
understand
No, I just didn't.
not
want
only
to
the
get
TIFs,
people
but they need to
about
understand
individual.
all the tax incentive programs, CIDs, NIDs, et cetera, et cetera. That's what that position needs to have. That position needs to be able to do.
So let me add to the conversation, and then that'll help. I put this bullet point list together, and I did add economic development, even though it's fully funded, because I think it's important that I outline the bullet points that I need from this person to take off my desk, or to take off some other people's desks. There are some specific tasks here that will benefit me 100%. Some of those we didn't get to. I know it's probably the right person, but there are some things that we have not been able to do well because of time resource or at all, like business, BRE, business retention and expansion. We do not, we at our level of city should have a formal BRE program that's maintained. Research, statistical reports, recommendations for program, finding out where our trends are, recommending legislative changes or program changes. No one mapping resource and information data as it relates to our city, so we know where we are lacking or where there needs to be growth, whether that's housing or whatever. Assist in implementing strategy or creating strategy. I will tell you the list of guidelines I have not got to. This would be a task that, so there are specific things here that would directly affect, assist other departments in projects and plans, helps with grants and for business development or entrepreneur resources. So there's things that we've not been able to touch as a city just because of the time resource that I think we can make our own and build. But also just knowing that data and trends and that financial. If I could get and I know Carrie Bell and I have talked a little bit about the opportunity for me to use some of accounting staff or maybe some of the more financial reporting and those more accounting things, but just being able to bounce out all the funding agreements, the CID reports. Yes, I'm on those boards, and yes, I think it's important that I'm on those boards, but somebody that understands the CID that can help me with that reconciliation. Those are the things I would like to have off my desk so I can do more things I probably should be doing. And that same thing then with the communication specialist. Yes, your marketing and promoting might have a little overlap, but these are specific tasks that any economic developer that is going through the certified economic developer program that is going to be a true economic developer specialist, it takes 3 years, my understanding, to get certified. These are all very specific industry tasks of that type of person. So I just want to say, if you guys, these are the tasks that I need that help me directly and some of the other departments directly. But same thing with the communication specialist. So I don't think yes, they may overlap, but this I think is also very specialized.
Okay.
Now, maybe you find the right person that can just do it all, heck, I would turn them down. But
No,
I do think they still are a little different.
I actually agree with your position. I just wanted to say that I would be flexible to, if we could find a path that saves us money, where I think this could be done by one person or shared. I'm open to ideas, but again, I think the communication specialist is incredibly important. Because something that the city just has never really tackled, and I think and just hearing you say that there's a lot for this person to come in and do, that.
It is very specialized in that field. The communication specialist, even though I could equate the time that, given somebody get in there in a good 6 months, the time that will take off my desk, but the communication specialist, not only will it take direct stuff off my desk, like could equate to a day a week, but also, Eric, I know he's got a specialist in his job that's funded, but that may change to more technician, but a big chunk of what they did, now they can focus on the parks because some of that stuff. So please, all the departments will benefit from this communication specialist as much as I will.
I would like to see these two people working in tandem a lot and being out at every single one of our events. I think that's where the branding comes in, and they're working hand in hand with Eric to help make sure that the Dragon Smoke goes off, marketing and the advertising, everything goes off, and he's handling operations of it, so that's taken off of his plate.
Like I said, the communication piece will help all departments greatly and help us level raise our engagement and transparency of every activity.
My concern is that they get into their cozy office and they think that their job is in that office, and I think that their job is half in that office and half out.
They better be out, get to know the departments as well.
Okay, it makes me feel great.
Should the engineer be on this one?
Well, I didn't put the engineer because I thought we had already kind of talked about what the engineer. I just knew there was questions along this one. So the city engineer, again, is funded too. I would be happy to do the bullet points of that job. I just thought maybe that one wasn't as, I wanted everybody to understand the 3 new ones. And then if there was any questions on here before I, move forward. Engineer and operation manager, those 2 will also be one that this week we get out. But
These 3 new ones, these are still up for the board to decide if we want those 3 new ones, correct?
yeah, these 3 on the first page are currently not funded. So I'm asking you to fund them. That is the direction I need from the board.
And the engineer position is posted.
But the engineer, operation manager, and economic development is still funded. I just wanted to clear up any question maybe you would have on that one.
So these 3 are you wanting funded, this one you're just letting pay?
It's already funded.
It is already.
It is already funded. Yep, it's included in 24.
Okay, so I got several things. Let's start with this, since we started about communication specialist. Justin and I have had the spirited conversation. My concern is only that I just don't see how it's a full-time job, okay? I do believe that we need to have somebody focused on this, if I lack of a better term, TikTok type capabilities, okay? Because staffing is what you talked about, whether it's promoting events and so on and so forth. I think there's some opportunities there that definitely should not be Gina's responsibility. I completely understand that. To tell you the truth, between the IT specialist, the economic development person, and communication specialist, that's 3 positions that in my mind, there's about 2 positions worth of work to do. It's a $30-some million budget and it's $100,000, so fine. But I also know, and I'm just going to be somewhat, this whole idea of these new positions that we struggle with to ensure that they're productive, we need to be careful how many of those we bring on at one time. It creates some different dynamics within our team, let's just put it that way. And so I'm just not convinced that bringing all of these on the same. First of all, one of the things we don't have is a org chart, and I'm concerned if all these positions were funded, how many direct reports did you have?
I'm only adding the communication. These
Okay, so
other
how many
2
would that
don't direct report.
How many would that be? Maybe 8 or 9, isn't it?
think you're probably 9. I do need to get the org chart, we didn't get it done.
Right.
It should be 9, that sounds right.
Okay. I've said this before over the years. I've managed anywhere from 5 to 11 people, and 6 to 7 is about all you can do and make sure that they do a good job in development. Okay.
Well,
9
last
is
year
all-
you told me 8 was the magic number.
Well, no. 6 to 8 is the magic range, okay? But 6 to 7 is probably the magic number, okay? In my mind. So I think that we're stretching you thin if that's how we plan on doing this. Because you're gonna have the economic development person is gonna be reporting to you as well as communication specialist. I realize the economic development person already reports to you, but we're gonna be starting a new person again too, okay? What I don't understand is the need for the IT specialist. That seems new to me. I
Well,
mean, HR, we've talked about a lot. I mean, I'm gonna trust that we get, things like recognition programs and so forth out of that. But the IT specialist, I thought we were just managing generally, we had a full-time person who was interacting with our group, and other than his help that Mike has with him, they're managing our outside Tyler Technologies and those folks. Forward slash, thank you, sorry.
well, I apologize if it's new to the board. I know Michael, Bean, and I over the last couple of years have discussed, like, at what point do you need support tasks and not 100% reliant on forward slash? And forward slash does a great job. But he feels at this time that it is ready. Same kind of argument we're kind of having with HR. It's like we're ready to have direct support to IT, so Michael Bean can be in the bigger picture or out managing forward slash. So I don't know what you want to add to that, because you probably.
Ultimately, the biggest issue that we have right now is supporting our police and 911. And I would say on any given day, Michael is spending half of that day supporting the police department and their technology. And then he's getting behind on a lot of the other stuff that he has to do behind the scenes. The need for technology in the police department, in the ambulances, in the vehicles that we support for the police department, as well as the officers out there and all of the technology that they have in their vehicles. When you add all that up, you're talking about close to 70 or 80 devices just in his department. And that is hands-on right here. That is not something that a help desk in St. Charles can help you with. That is him getting in the cars and putting hands on computers. And that's why we feel, that's the biggest reason why we feel like there is a need for this, for sure.
So is that because the technology doesn't work like it's supposed to, or because our folks don't understand how to work the technology?
We've added a lot of new technology over the last 24 months.
So it's a training deal versus a functionality?
I think it's a volume deal, isn't it?
It's a volume deal, and it is a maintenance deal. Software does not run by itself without constant maintenance and updates and all of those things that happen behind the scenes. On any given day, Michael is out in one of Chief's cars, spending 3-4 hours sometimes trying to make sure that we get everything aligned. There's also a lot of behind the scenes work that has to happen to pull secure video from servers to review that video so that we can make sure that Chief and his officers have the tools they need to enforce the laws that they're asked to do. This is just a natural progression because of the growth of our city, because of the growth of our police department, 911, technology. It is a daunting task, and right now, Michael some weeks is working 55 hours a week, sometimes more than that. Not all the time, but there's also, the other thing you gotta remember is, what if something breaks on a weekend? So right now, if something breaks on a weekend, Michael's it. Michael has to come in and help with a hardware issue. If we have another person to support Michael, then we can kind of break that.
Sure.
If you want to call it on-call work, it's not necessarily on-call work, then we can break that up between two individuals, and we're not completely driving one of our IT people into the ground. We're able to split it between a couple of different employees and kind of tag team it, if that makes sense.
And before he becomes overwhelmed.
Does everybody have like a city laptop? Right?
We're all pretty local.
A city what?
It's all these and docking
But
station.
he handles all those things.
Mike,
From
Yeah.
tablets to
there's
phones.
didn't Michael have to return early for vacation last year because of something?
I was gonna say, there was one,
Yeah, there's been a
one
couple.
weekend that he went up to northern Missouri with family, and we had an issue in the communication center. He drove 30 minutes to wherever he had good cellular service, so he could log onto his laptop and remote in to fix it, and then fixed it, and then drove back.
We've got great
I mean-
support through our managed service with /, and I don't think we've ever been in a better place with IT. The problem is that particular industry and what's needed to support that industry is growing exponentially. And there is nothing that we can do about that other than try to continue to support all of these devices and support the software and all of the hardware that goes behind it. We're doing a good job with that. We're doing better than we ever have. But we've got to have more help, on-site help. We can farm that out to /, if you want, but then we're going to start to pay their travel fees.
Yeah.
We're going to start to pay a lot of those other fees, and then that contract's going to get bloated, and we're going to have to deal with that. So this is the natural progression of things, and if the board approves it, I can guarantee you that person will spend 40 hours every week working on these issues.
It's too important of a job to me, definitely.
I support it. I think it's important that we have a support in place. I was fortunate to be involved with the interviewing process when we went to /, and even at that time, there was some discussion of how long we could survive with just one person here on staff. And unfortunately, or fortunate, however you want to say it, the technology that's out there, we just keep dumping more and more and more, and we've got to have the support, and I don't have any problem with supporting.
Yeah, how many employees does he have? 110, 20, something like that?
You know, full-time?
Is that him?
Yes.
Full-time 111, there's with the three added and one.
That clinical lab that I worked at, Brad, we had a lot of stuff to do. We had 3 full-time IT people, and we had 80 employees. And they were there a lot. So I just think technology is going to keep going that direction, and the more you can keep it in-house, the better off it is long-term.
Well, I know that Mike will be here on Thursday night, and we'll let him, talk a little bit more about this, but we're getting good. We have a good relationship with /. The phone upgrade that we just did, a little rocky, but anytime you switch phone system, it's always going to be a little rocky. We've worked all those bugs out with maybe a few exceptions that they're still working on behind the scenes. But that is working for us. And I know that Michael can elaborate a little bit more on that tomorrow night, but this position is needed for sure.
Thursday night.
Before we move on, I got a couple things to say if you don't mind. Because we've had some spirited conversations here too about our last economic development specialist. And I did think he did a good job. I didn't like how he left. And he was hired before I got here. When I read the job description, I didn't think he was given the latitude to do what he was supposed to do. I disagree that this person needs to be an expert in TIFs and CIDs and reports. We have lots of attorneys that do that. When I go out and promote people to come to the city, I let them know that we're willing to work with them. We have spikermen, we hire so many people, they're the experts. Our last city attorney used to say, I'm a general practitioner. We have specialists that does everything else. And that's what I see as an economic development specialist. Maybe that's not the right title, but I could see the communications specialist / economic development specialist, where they do all the promoting. I disagree. I don't think they need to have 3 years worth of training to know everything there is about TIFs. We hire attorneys to do that. Our main thing is to recruit people here, try to retain them here, and if they have questions about TIFs, that's when we hire experts and let the developers pay for it. I don't think they need to do 3 years worth of training to do that. I think they could handle the communication specialist. I think they could handle getting out in the community, visiting the businesses, going to our major, hey, what can we do to help you? That's what I think they should be doing. So I don't think, if we decided to do an economic development specialist, again, he was hired before I got here, but when I read the job description, it was not, he needed to spend 4 days a week in here learning how to do reports. So that's my say on that. The other thing, the direction I would like to see us go, and I don't mean this bad, but it frustrates me that we do have our sewage problem, and our assistant city administrator is doing that job, and nothing, you just work your tail off, and you're trying to do both jobs. I would love to see us get a new public works director over there, and get Mike back here doing either that, or you take that position over and find an assistant. But, I know that, Mike, we've had this conversation. I said, you've had every year, your job to do it. I have this many things to do. And I even asked you a few weeks ago when I said, you told me this is the most things you had to do this year, but yet you're doing the job of the public works. How do you do it all? And he said, because I do a lot of work. So my focus would be get a communications specialist / economic development specialist, get somebody in public works to do that and get the sewage problem taken care of, and then get a assistant city administrator.
Well, the engineer, keep in mind, I'm also doing all the project management. So the engineer, I think, is equally as important as that operations manager. My plan is to keep my offices over at Public Works so that we have administrative presence there. And I talked to Gina about that. I think we're both on the same page there. But yeah, those two jobs are going to make me very happy if we can get those filled, because that's going to allow me to kind of get back to supporting Gina in a lot of ways that I know she's missing right now.
So I had several other things. One, to build on what you just said, the economic development specialist. The second and third bullet points, I think, is where I have concerns around how we look at that position, and it may tag into what you're saying. Instead of assisting in developing an economic development strategy, they should be leading that. Instead of facilitating development of businesses, or obtaining grants, they should be leading that. Okay? That's what I think, and I think therein lies some of the dichotomy we have here and what people perceive in this position. Okay? I don't know the right answer, and I guess Mayor, you and Gina can figure that out at the end of the day. Okay? But I do believe that, Gina's deal is chicken and the egg. If you don't know anything about your city, you can't go out and develop relationships and sell the city. And your concern is that there's been too much, for lack of a better term, studying numbers and knowing numbers, and not enough getting out and backhanding and so forth. And I think all I can say is originally when this came up, I felt like it was grade level low, and the job description was not high enough. Meaning that it didn't have it was more of a specialist instead of a director. Okay? I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, but what I think I heard you say was the economic development specialist could be combined with the communication specialist. Is that what I thought I heard you say?
I just see it, they're seeking the same goal, and I think the same person, if you took a lot of the extra things, they don't need to be experts in TIFs and CIDs. Let them promote the city, and then when you need an expert, hire an expert.
Well, and that's something what Justin and I talked about is I thought there was some overlap in this. For example, his hope with the with the communication specialist was that a significant portion of their time would be directed towards staffing. So that's kind of an HR function, all right? We also know that they're going to be promoting events and possibly other things, and so that's kind of an economic development piece, all right? I just am not convinced that we need to have all three of those positions, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
If I had a choice, I would much rather hire the communication specialist. And some of these business retention and, no offense, if you are in the industry of economic development, you have to know the finance, and that is your piece. So if that's not what we think the city needs, I'm here to tell you where gaps we have, and if this position's important, there's pieces to this gap that we have. Now, if I had my choice, I would pass on this one for a minute.
Do I?
I would pass on this one for a minute. Get the communication specialist, because that's gonna have a direct effect. You're right, it's gonna have a marketing piece, and a promotion piece, but it's also gonna maintain the website and all the documents we have and for content, for engagement, that's a big job. So I have no concerns if this is full-time. And some of these promotional marketing pieces that are over here, absolutely you can get the right person to do that.
I would support that, take some of those, but
If I had my choice, I wouldn't. That's why I've not really advertised, because I wanted you guys to have the discussion. I know what I see out of this person because I have talked to other economic development specialists in other cities. This is what they do. If this is not what we think our gap is, then I'm not hiring them, because this is where the gap I need. And some of this, I don't think a lot, but then I just will go look for other resources when it comes to the TIFs and the finances and stuff. That's my goal is to.
Can I throw this possibility out? And by the way, I'm not sure they should get an expert on TIF and CID, but I think they should be well versed on it.
If you're promoting the city, you better be able to understand what a bond
Better
ratio
understand our
is,
policy.
So
what a funding agreement, how you're gonna balance
Yeah.
that funding agreement.
I think I'm somewhat between you guys on that one, but I think they need to have, because it's just a big deal with right now. But what about the possibility of this being the communications director, level 9, and this being the business development specialist at level 7?
Because we don't really just pick the levels. Tell me what a job description and gap, and that
Yeah,
kind of
we got-
dictates on what that price point is.
Well, I'm saying,
And a director implies you're over departments, and at this point, we're just the person,
no,
that's gonna do it.
Right now, you'd be creating the department by having
Well,
that.
the economic development director is normally over your building and your planning and your community support. I'm just saying that's.
Well, I think we all know, I'm with you on that side, the communication specialist, I think.
And I agree with that too, but I do think that we can take some of the things that were listed under economic development.
I think you're right about
Sure, they tie together. So, my suggestion is, we can all finish this last night, is just leave them both in there, but I would focus on getting the communication specialist up and running. It seems like that there's a higher need, and honestly, I'm just gonna say this, I'm not convinced that we can bring on those two people in 1 year into this system and make both of them productive and capable.
I would like to.
It's a lot.
This person.
We struggle, if I could finish, we struggle honestly to keep enough people here to keep the doors open in some of our departments and to have everybody fully staffed, which is starting to see, I'm seeing trends, I can list 3 or 4 of them up. I think it's gonna be easier to staff. Well, there's a lot of new people that are, wherever fully staffed, have to be brought on and acquire the knowledge of our system and the history and so forth. And I'll just say this, I don't think that we're that good yet to bring on an economic development specialist and a communication specialist in the same year. And that's not about somebody's performance. There's just too much to do here, to be quite honest. But we can leave it in the budget and just not hire for it. If we get the right person, so be it. To move past some of those things, since we're talking about staffing, engineer, there's two head counts in here, right? For the engineering department, did I understand that correctly?
We moved, the GIS technician will be
that's the
eventually to report,
GIS. Okay.
how Public Works will
Okay.
report to the engineer.
So we're not trying to, like, for example, get a project manager and an engineer here in the same
No.
year? Okay. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, I think we probably should, I'm just not sure we can do all that in 1 year. All right, so now I want to get back into a little bit around salary and, one thing, sewer reduction headcount, that was the electrician, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. All right, so when you talk about compression in the 4%, I appreciate that we are adding 4% to everybody, we are proposing to add 4% to everybody's salary. This is the same conversation that we had last year, if not the year before. And that is I'm not convinced that our higher level, grade level, should all get 4%. I know most of y'all are sitting here, so I apologize for that up front, okay? But the idea in many of these cases here is to add the 4% or whatever percent it is, because it's to help staffing. And our staffing issues are at the lower grade levels, okay? And where I see a more strategic thing, and I'm not sure what we ended up doing, because I know this was talked about before in a previous year or two ago, I'm trying to remember, where let's just say, and I'll just pick something out, up to grade 10 or something, they got, let's say, 6%, and everybody grade 11 and above, for example, and I'm just pulling numbers out right now, I have to look at it, they would get something like 2%, okay? Because honestly, we don't have a whole lot of problem staffing the higher grade levels. You guys do a great job. Appreciate you keep coming to work. Thank you so much, okay? I'm glad that those positions are full. Now somebody could say, well, if you don't give them 4%, But to tell you the truth, I think that your jobs would be a lot more effective if we could keep those positions staffed. And I think that we may need, I guess I would just say, I think it needs to be kind of graduated, or whatever you want to call it. The lower grade levels need to have a more percentage increase. First of all, they're on a much lower base. So the amount of dollars effect is not significant, not as significant, okay? And second of all, that's where, in my mind, that's what that 4% is to help us with our staffing, overall culture, whatever you want to call it. And it just seems to me like there's an opportunity where we can make a bigger impact in our lower grade levels.
So let me answer that in a few parts. First of all, the 4% premium is not, yes, it's to keep our current employees moving through the pay plan in the same progression as your new employees. So last year, the year before, when we did the premium, we did it across the board. And I honestly, not just because I'm at a different level, but we are not, compression is still happening in the upper levels because we have done really good to address the beginning salaries and be competitive. We're increasing our floors and our ceilings, and we're getting those hard to fill ones. We're at where I feel we need to be competitive. So as you move the floor and ceiling, we've got all these people in the middle, and we've done good at addressing everybody in their newer jobs, but the ones that have been in their jobs one a little longer or are higher levels, however you want it, they're not getting moved in the same progression. So the 4% is not necessarily, yes, it's retention, but it's not the recruitment piece because that's the beginning salary. It's to keep even your long-term employees still moving through in the same pace as your low employees. Now, first year we did it across the board, same premium. Last year the board decided they wanted quartiles, and instead of isolating out people in certain layers, it was like if you were in your first quartile, you got the full premium. If you were in your second quartile, third quartile, fourth quartile, it went down from there. And that's how we managed it last year. That was because of this conversation. I did not put it in there because I don't think, regardless if you happen to have your profession in grade level 10, 9, 7, 11, whatever, everybody's moving in the same progression to keep compression from hitting it. So but it's board's discretion, but last year you did direct me to do a stair step in the premium. The higher you were in the level, the less you got. So if you were in your fourth quartile, not level, quartile. If you were in the fourth quartile, you did get, I think I stair stepped it to 0.5%. Now, I will tell you, because the floor and ceilings, a lot of our quartiles 2s will now be in the 1, regardless of the level. Quartile 3s will be in the 2s because we are doing a big jump on the floor and the ceiling, and that's the biggest jump we've had in a long time. So, opportunity, but there's your compression. You've got employees that are here 7, 8 years or more, still barely in the second quartile. Well, the midpoint of the quartile means 50% more people in your job get paid more, and 50% get paid less. And so you've got long term. So that's the only reason I advocated the premium part should be the same. The merit increase is based on quartiles, based on your performance. But I last year was directed that because of that argument, and that's fine too. We can work it that way. I would not recommend by levels. I don't think singling out groups of people by level.
Okay.
But by quartile, that was what we did last year because of this similar conversation.
Then and I don't know what everybody else thinks, but at the very least, my suggestion would be is we could have this, follow this up by the third night or whatever and see what that was last year. Because to be quite honest, I remember talking about it, but I can remember what year it was and how exactly it went and see what the rest of the board thinks. Because I do think when you're looking at somebody that's $40,000 or $50,000 a year, okay, 4%, $1,600 to $2,000. At 12 months, that's nice, okay? And maybe whether that's 6% or 4%, but when you're talking about somebody up here in the $100,000 to $125,000 range, it's $4,000 or $5,000 a year. It's a lot, okay? Not only in raw dollars, but at the end of the day, I just think that we continue to struggle in the lower level positions. And somehow, whether it's quartiles, if you want to do it that way, we need to make sure that those folks stay a long time like the rest of the folks, okay?
So what I will do, hopefully, Richard, that will answer that for you, I'll find last year's, I'll get last year's structure and where everybody was last year, like how many employees are in the first, second, third, and fourth, how that's moved, because we did make progress on our compression over the last 2 premiums, which were the goal for that. And then with this floor and ceiling move, we'll put together where everybody's at and recommendation for that stair step of the weighted, we called it a weighted premium last year.
Just a question to you. Are you saying this, like, we don't really need to give them quite as much because they're already getting paid more, they've been here a long time, retention isn't that big, isn't really that hard to have with that person?
I think the better way to say it is the predominance of our turnover tends to happen in the lower quartiles or the lower grade levels, and that's where the money needs to be put, okay? So I think that we continue to see in those grade levels, but there's grade levels or quartiles, and we use those interchangeably right now, all right? We see, whether it's the Lake Ozarks or the Canningtons or the Miller Counties or the whatever, every time they keep trying to catch up with us, all right? And we're losing, not always, and it's gotten better recently, but over the last 2 years, we're losing people to those levels, okay? So that's why I think there should be a focused, whether it's weighted, however you want to call it, we should consider that at the very least.
Do you have, are retention rates different for the quartile people? Do you have any kind of retention rates for that?
They're really different per job. Every job is different. Some jobs are
I
harder.
would say sewer department, that's going to have a lot higher turnover rate than our water department. Dispatch, again, that's another one that's hard to fill.
Right.
So, but again, those are lower pay level, pay grade positions.
We'll
And
bring-
the tenure, if I could add to that, the tenure in those positions tend to be some of the lower tenures, right? Whether it's our road patrol or our sewer staff or our to be quite honest, our managers, we got a lot of tenure, okay? But our front level employees, we don't have near the tenure. Is that a fair statement? I think that is, right? Okay.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me is just inflation is so high right now.
So what's that?
Inflation is so high right now. It's just a bad time to look at it that way.
That's the main part of the premium is really more the cost, but to keep it moving. And competition, even in the labor market, affects what's costing people to live. And so therefore, whether you've been here 10 years, 2 years, or 2 months, if you're, but I'll bring back options from what we did last year.
And honestly, we've been doing, probably in some cases, depending on what numbers you look at, some of our increases, or what do you call premiums, have been at or above inflation rates anyway, okay, over the last 2 or 3 years.
This will be if this is approved as funded, this will only be our 3rd year.
This will be our 3rd.
And we really thought 2 would get everybody where they needed to be, but.
Okay. I'm not, again, 4%, I think that you're on track, onto something. We need to still look at where we can put some dollars that make a difference in our staffing and our tenure, if you will, because it affects training and everything else. The amount of time Michael's on boarding, the new employees that take more of Todd's time or his lieutenant's time or whatever the case may be, that's how we can, how would I say, keep this, for lack of a better, have a high level of consistent operations, right? But on top of that, the retirement. So as we brought the loggers conversation forward, I know there's still a tremendous amount of work to do. One of the things that I remembered is when we added the 1% additional match, it seems to be like, between COVID or whatever happened, it seems to be like at one point, we added the 1% to see what kind of participation rate we would get. And if we had a higher participation rate, I think that we always thought we would go back and take a look at that and see if potentially we could move that to like a 3 and 3, for example. And I don't know that we ever really revisited that because we got focused on COVID, and that's nobody did anything wrong.
That's a fair statement.
Okay.
We did not revisit.
Right, and so I think it needs to be brought up now. Whether it's brought up right now, you want to bring it up with loggers, because at the end of the day, if we're going to go into loggers, we're going to pay a lot more money than what we're paying out now. That's all there is to it, no matter what. Okay, so in my mind, I think this is a time that, whether it's tonight or as we go through budget, that we need to talk about what if we want to make any other additional opportunities for our employees within our current retirement system, for lack of a better word.
We can bring you back just what that cost effect is and what that'd be, and we can discuss that when we bring this topic back up.
Do you have, let's
Bring it back on what a percent cost. And I'm not saying we'll do 1 or 2 or a half, but if you bring back 8%, then that gives us a gauge whether.
And also, they'll give Mike time to figure out what the participation rate is, because I wouldn't know whether to guess. I know when I budgeted all the new people, I assumed they would match, but.
The last time I checked, and it's been several months, it was very high on the match, on the 1% match. And I even went out to newer employees that seemed to maybe have missed that sign up and got a few more So I think that percent on the 1% match is very high.
When we talked about this the last time, I think the board had mentioned that they wanted to get to 10%. So right now, if you have an employee that matches,
6, 7,
you've
8,
got them at
9,
8. So 1 more percent match would get an employee to 10%, and I think
Yeah,
that's
we
what we
did
had
talk
talked
about, but that's what we're saying, we did not bring it back.
So to give you an answer on the 1%, I mean, round numbers, okay, but our salaries for project 2023 projected year end is $5 million, so $50,000 per percent. Right. In my mind, it should be up to 3. It should, I mean, we should at least consider going to 3 now. It could be, you can choose as an employee to do 1 or 2 or 3, but I think that we should go up to at least 3. We can go more. I mean, but I think that we left something on the table that needs to be revisited.
Do you think that's gonna be an incentive for people to not be supporting loggers so much?
I think it'll change the math.
That is not my question. I
Well,
agree with you.
It's not
The math
intentionally
should
done
change their
that way.
opinions, but that will change.
I would just say it's not intentionally done that way, however the timing is. I think the fact that the loggers conversation come up is what sparked me to think that we didn't ever revisit this, okay? It is what it is, sorry, I apologize, all right? At the very least, we've been doing premiums, okay, or whatever, salary
That's why I was
premiums for the
doing
last couple of
premiums.
years, so I'll take a little solace that we weren't really trying to, you know, but at the end of the day, sure, absolutely, because whether it's loggers or whether it's what we have or some other thing that we don't even know about, it's all about the math when it comes to retirement. And anybody wants to tell me different, well, I'll argue till the end till they can't stay away, okay? Because it's always about the math, all right? And the only thing I can tell you is you know, right, wrong, or indifferent, as we approve these salary ranges, as we approve these additional people, as we approve premiums, and then we look at loggers, and if we end up deciding, we could easily quadruple what we are currently paying to make anyone happy within our organization with loggers. Because I've had a couple conversations with people, and I see where their heads at, all right? I don't believe the math is there, so hopefully I'm hoping the math is gonna tell, but it may tell me I'm wrong too. What I can tell you is the minimum of loggers, which I don't think impresses much of anybody that right now that wants us to do loggers, is not gonna be a number that is gonna be impressive to them whenever they turn 65, okay? So what's gonna be impressive to them is something that costs about 4 times more than what we have, okay? And we'll just see how this process goes, but that's my prediction. But to answer your question, sure, it may be a detriment to loggers. But of course it would be, because it's an increase in our current.
Yeah, I mean, what concerns me is that I've heard several police officers say that they might not be here if loggers doesn't come in. And when I was up at that NML meeting, I can't believe how many people we went and talked to. And as soon as we told them we didn't have loggers, they didn't have a whole lot of interest.
Well, that's because you didn't turn around and tell them we have a better program.
No, I did that.
Well, then they didn't understand it.
And
That's
they
the wrong
don't
person.
think it,
Well-
I'm saying right or wrong,
So,
they're trapped in that box.
Let's hold that.
They trap themselves. Yeah.
so Justin, put your comments and questions in an email, get to Mike Ray so we make
Right.
sure we
Oh,
can
I'm sorry.
discuss them. No, but I'm saying we're having a workshop in January.
Right.
This is the time I wanna make sure that he has
Well, what I'm
enough
hoping, and
information.
Michael Ray and I have talked about it, is that we have
Some
something that
scenarios.
says some specific examples about what X can do if you take 6 or 9 or 12 now, potentially, okay? If you were 25 years old and you had a couple of promotions across a 35-year career, what would you have at the end of the day, and what would you get with loggers? Because nobody's ever done that, okay? And because that's really, you know, would you rather, I don't know what the number is, would you rather have $300,000 in your hand, or would you rather have $3,000 a month?
I think Bob's actually put some time into it already.
Well, maybe he has, I haven't seen it, so.
So
Well, I don't know what I've said.
I put a lot of
What
time
I
in
said
it
from
years
day one
ago.
was, if our program is better, we need to learn how to sell it better.
I agree with that. I asked Cindy and Todd about that 2-3 years ago, but I realize it's a complicated task. And that's all I have on that subject.
Sorry, you didn't mean so far change.
Okay, so I know we only technically have 15 more minutes. I know we want to get through these departments. We want to take a 5-minute break.
I think
Or,
we'll do that.
Okay,
I mean.
do we want 5
to-
minutes? Because I know it's gonna be 10 unless you really want
Well,
5.
I was thinking.
Are we gonna end at 8 or are we gonna keep going until we're done?
It's up to you guys.
I personally,
They're
I
here,
would
we
rather
need
take
to-
a bathroom and leave when we feel like we should. But
Okay,
that's-
well then,
they're
would
here.
everybody like to take be back at 5 till? That's 9 minutes. Is that good?
Okay.
Those I can be quick on,
All right,
because I know the details of the capital expenditures, we will go through as we hit them in the funds. But on page 10 is the outline, oh, I'm sorry, 11. No, it's 10, I'm sorry, page 10. Where I go home, I guess. Page 10 is a summary of all the capital and what line items have capital. The next few pages, it's a very detailed capital investment sheet. And this year I added an additional column that I just want you guys to be aware of. The first column under expenditure matches each individual's department's capital list. Corresponding revenue is tied to anything that helps pay for that specific item, whether it's a couple transfers from CIT, whether it's ARPA funds, whether it's grants, whether it's sale of equipment, because if we sell something, that will match the revenue side. That third column is the carryover. Last year we had about $12.8 million in capital expansion budgeted in 23. And out of that, we're carrying over nearly $5 million in some form or fashion. So it's very interesting this year that 25% of the value of our capital is being carried over to 23, making 24 investment in capital $20 million. So last year, and right, wrong, and different, I know we are being optimistic, we're gonna do a lot. And a couple of these projects are very large, so it takes up a lot of that. But the 12.8 million last year was unprecedentedly large. In the last few years, we have gotten a lot done. So $20 million in capital this year is a lot, but about $5 billion of that, 25% is a carryover in some form or fashion. So I wanted you guys to be aware of that. It's something that I report on when the budget's complete for the community. And then the very last page, on page 14, I thought it to be important that I outline everything that did not make it into the 2024 budget. Now, it was not like I just said it didn't make it. Talk to the departments, what can you realistically get done, what should we wait on, and so that's really where some of these items are. Again, we don't necessarily have to, we can talk about them when we talk about the individual funds or the departments, but I wanted you aware of what was requested and what didn't make it to the 2024 budget for some reason or other. So that's really my summary on capital. I just want you to be aware of these sheets, what they mean, as we go through the different departments and you discuss the capital.
Excuse me, Gina, there on page 14, the general fund, and it's listed at Broadwater streetlights. Didn't we discuss maybe seeing about leasing them from American UE and not purchasing them?
Well, when we get to the transportation fund, we can discuss those
Okay.
details. I just wanted you guys to aware of what you're not seeing in the
Okay.
2024 budget. That way, think about it, and we'll be talking about transportation next Monday. That'll be
Okay.
the best time that Mike can answer that.
All right, thank you.
They wanna go home.
No, I mean, he's welcome to answer.
I was giving you a
I mean, I am wanting to go home, but it's.
Can I make a general comment about capital real quick? Yes, ma'am. I just want to remind the board that most of the carryovers that we did in 2023 were done on purpose. You remember I come to the board about halfway through the year and I'd said we are really struggling to find good bids. We're really struggling to find contractors to bid on things. And so we put a lot of projects on hold that we are bidding out right now to happen in the spring. And so, yes, there's a lot of carryover, as Gina just alluded to, but a lot of that was done on purpose so that we could try and garner better bidding in the fall and winter months. Thank you.
Any general questions on that? Again, sorry, Phyllis, I don't know, we can answer them, but yeah,
thank you.
answer with all the different departments.
Thank you.
So my last quick comment on outstanding debt summary. So page 15, we're very excited. We're about to pay off the rest of the bonds. Now, as of December 31st, 2023, these were our principal balances of the different SRF funding that we have. You'll see in the budget is the cash flow. So I just want to make a note. So for example, The 2003 SRF water revenue bonds, which scheduled maturity is 1/1/2024, that cash actually goes out in 2023. So when I budget for that, we actually pay the payment before the payment. So anyway, so that one will be next, when we get the next year's budget, that'll be off. So I just wanted to clarify that, but that's our outstanding bonds. Eric?
Yep, Parks and Rec.
All right. I was threatened by Tara on the break, so. As far as operations and maintenance, a lot of it is the same as far as requested budget. A few,
What page are we on?
oh, I'm sorry,
Page 38.
Thank you.
I did ask for an increase in trash services, additional $3,000, simply because we had several new events this year that we didn't know going to January, the food truck festivals and everything, and I had to order extra trash services for that because we were overwhelmed during the first one. And we anticipate probably more events next year. Vehicle maintenance, I shouldn't even note this, but it's down because we have 2 new trucks. Thank you, Board, we appreciate that. Concession.
That we think is a mistake.
Okay, I was gonna ask you about that. I'm like, did she leave it out because of the unknowns?
There's 2 spots that I agree I messed up on, one of Todd's pages and one of Eric's pages, and the 0 is not supposed to 0 in concession supplies, and same thing on the revenue side, and it was just a fluke in my Excel sheet, so.
Well, that being said, with potential new things going on, with the possible partnering with an outside organizations to manage the fields and the concession stand.
Well, we budgeted as no change,
Yes,
because at this
yes.
point, the board has not made a change.
Correct.
When and if the board decides to make a change, we will amend the budget.
Yes.
But at this
Right
point,
now,
it's supposed to be scheduled as,
moving forward, business as usual. So, other than that, league's activities did not ask for as much because we transitioned from the Tri-County League to Camden Osage Beach at the request of a lot of parents. They were tired of driving all over the country, and you had some with multiple kids trying to juggle being in different towns. And so Camden approached us, and what that meant is we cut down from 3 nights a week to Monday nights, and we didn't have as many teams, so we didn't have to spend as much in leagues and activities. Again, potential partnerships, we won't have to spend anything necessarily because this outside organization takes that on. We did ask for an increase in electric service because possibly for potential partnership and possibly new events, I anticipate that the electric is going to go up. In operating capital, we've asked for a UTV replacement. One of our UTVs is scheduled to be transferred to Public Works, I believe. We use our UTVs heavily. This is on state contract. It's a Polaris 4-seater, middle of the road, just what we need. One service truck replacement we've asked for. I think Mike's already discussed that. And the irrigation pump replacement was voted on at the last meeting. Okay. Our capital expansion, sorry, I should have handed these out earlier, but this is an at a glance, kind of give you an idea of board members. Yeah, I only have like 6 of them. I didn't know exactly how many people were going to be here.
Tara, you already got it.
I got one here.
Yeah. So with Frisbee Golf Course, I'll start off with the maintenance building improvements. That is the carryover, the bathroom project. That's adding a bathroom and shower and utility sink to the back of the maintenance shed. And as Mike had discussed earlier, what was the bid? One bid we got back for that, or on the bathroom, or am I getting things mixed up? Wasn't it just some
We got it, when we combined it with the other project, which the other project was not funded, it was excessive, it was way over budget, so we did not accept those bids. But the park bathroom project is out to bid right now.
Okay.
And we'll be bringing that to the board this fall or winter for spring construction.
Well, as part of those improvements, equipment shed, right now, we have added some carports that we're currently storing our holiday lights in, which is a great advantage because before they were stored in the Public Works over a pole barn at Public Works, and Parks Department had to take our 18-foot trailer and load these and spend 3 days transporting them from Public Works to the park. These are very delicate, they're very expensive, and very maintenance intensive. So this cuts down transporting them back and forth. So we do have storage for those, and we did add a couple more carports for equipment storage, but we still have some very expensive equipment sitting out in the weather, and that's where this comes into play. We can do this in-house. As you can see, it's very inexpensive. So that's something I'd like to do as well. Watercraft rental. The pictures you're seeing here are watercraft rental buildings that we built at Croydon River State Park in 2012. I started the watercraft rental operation there. Since that time, this is expanding significantly. We started out with 6 kayaks and 3 canoes, and when I left 8 years later, we had 25 boats total, and we were generating $30,000 to $35,000 in revenue with little maintenance cost. So the estimate that you see is for, we've already purchased, thank you Gina, 10 canoes and a trailer. So I was asking for funding for kayaks, for materials to build the storage buildings, for materials to build the rental booth. And the plan is, if the board approves it, is we staff it with a seasonal, and we'll start out Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. And I think I'm asking for 6 kayaks. And this is one of the goals that I have to offer more recreation opportunities in our parks. We have a very nice lakefront property. We have 2 very nice coves, and you can continue on, and there's still a continuation of coves as you continue on towards the main channel. Now, we don't want people going to the main channel on canoes, obviously, but you have over a mile there from our property, and we'll work out logistics on, you know, where they stop and everything like that if the board approves this. But I am very confident, speaking from experience, this would be successful and very popular for park visitors.
Eric, why is Friday, Saturday, Sunday season?
Starting out, we can try it. You know, that's usually the most popular days.
It just seems like that's kind of totally targeting tourists and not targeting, you know, a lot of people here during the season are off Monday and Tuesday, not off during the weekends.
As long as we can staff it, I am not opposed to having it every day. That is not a problem. So,
Just point it out.
Staffing is the only concern that I have with that is there any way or any system anybody's aware of where it wouldn't necessarily need to be staffed? Whether, you know, like lockers, for
Self-pay or,
example.
yeah.
there is
I
a
don't know.
system.
There
is a system, and I actually, the company gave me a presentation earlier this year, but basically it was a automated box, and you use an app and you pay online. It was really slick, but it
Kind
was
of like
a lot
parking
of,
in the cities now.
yes, a lot of upfront cost, and then it was a monthly lease cost too. It was a lot, and starting out, I mean, maybe down the road, it's a good idea, but the cost was a lot. So again, I think this would be very popular.
So who would this be staffed with? Is there a part-time person, I'm sorry, in the personnel schedule that we're adding as a part-time person or something? Is that how we're planning on doing it?
We would be staffing those seasonals.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and again, I'm gonna ask for a bit more per hour for seasonals so that we don't have the challenges. When I say that, I don't know what next year brings, you know, everybody has their own challenges. So I do know that at $14 an hour, we were not competitive with what supermarkets and your Menards.
Eric, your department's on any others where we've already included that as funded for 24.
Okay.
part of the personnel.
Moving on, playground improvements. After discussion with Mike and Gina, we felt that concentration on design and engineering for 2024 was the best course of action. And to be quite honest with you, I've talked to a lot of playground equipment companies and a lot of splash pad companies, and I need a bit more guidance from the board on what our budget is on this. Because it's like anything else, you can spend. It just depends on what you want. It's not something we have to decide tonight, obviously. Just to give you an idea, the best price that I found in the last 3 or 4 months on a splash pad and install was $187,000. You know, and again, we can discuss another time, but I think moving forward to next year, design and engineering is the best decision. Will also give us time to research grant opportunities and possible donation opportunities locally. And talking to Cole about that, he's confident we can get a lot of this equipment paid for with donations. So, pickleball courts as a carryover. I think talking with Mike, the parking lot reconstruction, that was a carryover as well. I think the intention is to bid those out together. Possibly try to find a contractor to do both. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Wait, look at your capital list. We talked about the parking lot at Phoenix Park was not carried over because if you're gonna redo Phoenix Park with the park, we did not put the Phoenix Park parking lot.
We had discussed just taking that project, putting that on hold because of the unknowns with the
Okay,
design.
when you said both, I was like,
No, this
it's
is
only
the,
Omi City Park.
You know, I think
City Park.
what he's saying is the pickleball project and the parking lot will
Yes.
be bundled together.
Don't get your-
The Phoenix Park parking lot is on page 14 on that list of things that did not make the budget.
Yes,
And that makes sense as we kind of reimagine Phoenix Park right now. We also have a nice new sidewalk that's going to be going through there. So a new playground on where the upper field is going to look very, very appealing because you're going to have a lot of eyes on it with that new sidewalk going by as well.
I would like to point out that pickleball courts and parking lots are not the same thing.
They're not what?
They are not the same thing. It's not like you just put asphalt down and it's a pickleball court.
It's not, but the same type of construction people can handle both projects.
Possibly. So,
well, I skipped over Frisbee Golf Course, so.
don't do that.
No, the map that I provided, thank you, Mr. Rucker, for sending that to me, is one that was put together, 5, 6 years ago. And I met with the volunteer group that wants to assist with this project. And during the discussion, we decided that if this is approved, the south side of the pond here is where we're going to start with. And this will have to be redesigned, but we would put in 9 holes here. And basically what that comes down to is this is the easiest to work with over here. The north side is pretty much a jungle right now. So we're going to start there, and then depending on usage and popularity, then we'll expand possibly years in the future. But they sent over a very detailed cost estimate. It has a picture of the kiosk here that we would build. It has specs, installation recommendations, and then your cost breakdown. Was very impressed with that. And overall, you're not talking about a lot of money. And again, another recreation opportunity for visitors. And right,
Are you gonna set up like a front 9 and a back 9, like a golf course? Or?
that's 9 holes.
Right, front 9, back 9. So you're starting with basically the bottom of the page down here?
Correct. It's actually, you get up there and it's not perfectly level, but it's fairly level and it's very clear. We won't have to take out a lot of trees. If so, a little bit of brush. We already have a area down at the end of the pond dam where we would put the kiosk and everything. And I think it would be popular. I think it would be be, one more thing people could do with their families. And we could probably, check out Frisbees at the concession stand or at the park. We do that with our pickleball portable nets right now, So,
Looks like a lot of tree removal, too.
no, we walk that, it's not too bad.
Okay.
And I think that is it. So like I said, short and sweet, happy to answer any questions.
Eric, I got a question. In fact, the conversation came up this week. Do you have an actual vehicle that is a city vehicle that you can use?
And it's me and normally a recreation specialist, but that position's vacant right now. It's a 2007 Ford Explorer.
Okay,
It's a hand-me-down cop car. It squeaks and makes noise, and
but you do use it?
I do use it, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I remember a conversation that you were talking about your own car having to pay for a lot of gas and how expensive it is. And then I'm thinking, well, don't we have a vehicle for you to use? So that's what I was wondering.
No, during, for city usage, yes, we use it, like going to the city hall, use it to go check on
City
meetings.
business.
City business, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
It's used because
Okay.
there are a lot of times where we're really busy, the two park trucks are in use, and, so, yes,
Okay.
we do. It's not the best of shape.
But it's operating.
It is, and I think it's on the vehicle replacement schedule for next year.
It's a 2007.
It's a 2007, it has over 141,000 miles. Lights
Or maybe
on.
there'll be another
Car
used one.
plastic.
It's being proposed to be replaced with a F-150 crew cab.
Yes.
It's almost an antique, though. It's pretty cool.
Is that the service truck replacement that's in?
Yes.
Yes.
For park ship.
Correct.
Eric, do you guys have heat for your guys and everything? I remember when I first came down there.
I believe that's in the building maintenance improvements, and sorry I didn't go into detail on that, but we did get bids to insulate the interior of the shop, and that would include the installation of another Pelican wall-mounted heater, and we're quite confident that that would be adequate if we have to pull equipment in and turn heat on for a couple hours to work on things, not something all the time.
We got lucky last winter where it wasn't that one weekend. It was brutally cold. It was a light winter, but I don't think we want to go into that with your guys not having.
I think each board member actually toured the parks, and we had that discussion while we were down there. Wintertime, you have to work on something in there. It's miserable.
Yeah.
Heat just doesn't keep up with the space. So
Insulation seems the obvious.
you're talking, I think the low bid was 7,000. So
So maintenance repair, you got it like 40% increase. Is there anything in particular that you're expecting? Or at least over what you spent this year?
to be honest, and speaking from experience with parks, and here it's the unknowns. You don't know.
I'm just looking at it, obviously, some of it is electric. We are expecting quite a jump in electric. And then it's not really apparent here, but if you look at maintenance and support, which is the fourth line down, under operations and maintenance on page 38, you'll see there's a jump there. That's related to the new work order system. And so, as you know, this year and into next year, we're doing public works, but then at the latter part of next year, we're expanding that into parks and airport. And so some of that is, some of that raise in cost is the initial setup fees and the yearly SaaS or software as a service fees related to that software.
And I appreciate all that. I'm talking about the line item, this clarity.
Maintenance.
743,100, $45,000 is what we're projecting into this year, and we're budgeting $65,000 next year. I was curious if there was something that was driving that.
2023, we budgeted 63,000.
We never used anything close to it, but I was just curious.
21, we used 52, 22, we used 55.
Just wondered if there's no, I mean, if we budgeted 63, so we added 2 more, okay, sounds good. Just was curious.
Well, I'll remind the board, you all know this, I mean, with the potential partnership, again, that's not a done deal. I think that's out for bid until the 15th. Is that correct, Tara?
Yep.
And I know of at least 2 organizations that are interested in that. If that happens.
Ballparks.
Yes, ma'am. If that happens, our maintenance will increase significantly through the week, definitely, because we're gonna be maintaining the fields and maintaining the facilities a lot more for increased attendance.
I'm sorry, our maintenance will increase?
Yes,
They will be taking that over most of it, won't
if we still have to maintain the facilities and maintain,
they? Yeah, but
they will set up for the proposal, they will set up the fields on the weekends. It was discussed, if this continues, that they may help with, materials, treatment of the fields, things like that. But because the fields are gonna be used more consistent, in theory, I don't know, never tried this. Earlier in the year and later in the year, our maintenance costs will increase overall. But again, unknowns, it's up to the board whether or not they want to vote on this and support it. I guess we'll see after the 15th.
So when do you start your fertilizing program right now?
After our, after Fall Festival, so we'll be treating the fields in the next couple of weeks. And then we lock them for roughly a week or 2 because it's not stuff you want to track in your house. We don't want the public on. And we also treat them going into the spring. So as long as the weather cooperates, March is heavily treated.
But if we're gonna have this additional traffic, we might need to do that even more often.
Correct.
They're not paying for anything?
We don't know if this partnerships, but like I said, I think the idea now is to get the bids back and then the board will vote on whether or
The
not.
proposal's out for them to propose to us
Oh, I see.
certain things.
I thought it was like, we left that out, or we didn't, they're not offering it, or we don't really know yet.
We won't know till
We
they
don't
fill
know.
out the.
Everything's negotiable.
And there's a condition of the road. A lot of traffic, yeah.
So a lot of unknowns, again, as I said a month or 2 ago, I'm cautiously optimistic about it. If the board decides to move forward with it, I think it could be a very good thing for the city and the parks. But as far as I know, nothing like this has been tried, so we'll see.
Did we plan for revenue from that contract that we used to move forward?
It was,
Or not?
no, in fact, I didn't realize that was the maintenance, but we were budgeting just as no change. And then once we formalize a contract, and then if we need to change the budget, we will.
I mean, I'll just say this on repair and maintenance. If they're gonna put a lot more people through there, and I'm not sure what all repair and maintenance is, okay? I would think that maintaining fields, maybe there's more maintenance in the fields, but at the very least, your usage of your restrooms and your concession stands and things like that, may drive some. I can see that, so. Good.
Okay, Todd.
Well, since Eric used 20 of my 20 minutes, so start with the police department one first. Just
Page 43.
page 43. Some highlights, maintenance and support, you'll see an increase in that. In 24, we'll start year 1 of 5 of our in-car video cameras that you guys approved earlier this year. Then mobile devices in service, we'll be adding additional cell phones to the police department so the officers aren't using their own personal phones and creating sunshine request issues. It'll be just like our 2 supervisor phones. They'll check them out at the beginning of their shift and take them back and forth. So we'll have 4 for day shift, 4 for night shift, as well as hopefully 1 for the proposed canine and canine officer as well as the SRO out at the school. The canine program, search dog, drug canine, we'll touch on that a little more here in just a minute, but reinstating that, the last time we had that was 2018. We retired our canine at that time and we hadn't replaced it since. This will actually be covered in 3 different, 2 in capital and then 1 in O&M. Memberships, our drug task force membership is increasing this year to $3,500, and a couple of the other memberships have increased as well, so that's what that increase is reflecting. Firearms and range expenses, we're proposing to add 5 more patrol rifles to the officer's equipment. That will give us a total, I believe, of 17. Our ultimate goal is going to be to add or issue each officer a patrol rifle, and we're going to be replacing or removing the majority of all the shotguns. We'll have a few shotguns that we're going to keep, but with today's times and active shooter situations and everything, a patrol rifle is much more effective than the shotguns are. So right now, each officer's issued their duty firearm plus a shotgun, and some of the officers have patrol rifles. We'll eventually be removing all the shotguns. That's for five rifles, the optics, slings, flashlights, everything that goes with them, as well as reflecting the increase in ammunition costs. So that's what that investment is. Officer Edgar's here. He's the one that's kind of spearheading our, did all the research for the police canine, so I'll let him speak on that, and then I'll jump back to capital stuff real quick. So for those that don't know, go ahead.
I'm Officer Austin Edgar. It's a pleasure to, I've had the pleasure to meet some of you if you don't know me. I'm going to go over the police canine budget review that we're looking into. Just an introduction to it, canines are an invaluable tool to law enforcement as a whole. A lot of agencies utilize them. As you guys are probably aware, watching cops or seeing it on CNN, but canines locate evidence by using a sense of smell to quickly search small and large areas. They're trained in obedience, protection, searches, in addition to criminal tracking and apprehension. Some of the benefits of having a canine here at this police department is going to be officer safety. They can be deployed in potential life-threatening situations, thus making it safer for us officers, keeping us safe. They assist in burglary alarms that we receive to potentially locate suspects in that specified area, because we do get a lot of burglary alarms. Can be a tool to keep officers safe when a criminal is being violent by dog. For missing persons is another benefit, increased chances of locating endangered and missing persons in a timely manner. There are canines that are available. Miller County is one, Lake Ozark is getting one, but from my experience, and a lot of officers can attest that majority of those times they can't come out. That is their canine. Maybe they're gone, maybe they're working on something else, but it makes it difficult to get them here in a timely manner. Drug interdiction is a huge one. That's probably a big reason that I'm really pushing for this, or our department is, for locating illegal substances in vehicles, and if we have a search warrant for a home as well. It helps lower other criminal activity that could stem from the use of illegal substances. If you don't know, there's a large relationship between illegal substances and violent crimes. There's a lot of federal statistics that show that, whether it's kidnapping, robbery, assault. And then it'll also lower overdoses and deaths, or so we hope. It's an ongoing battle with illegal substances, but fentanyl is ever-changing and takes many different forms, and it's caused a lot of overdoses. Criminal apprehension. It'll assist in tracking fleeing suspects in an efficient and timely manner, and it can be used as a de-escalation tool that can be potentially utilized against violent subjects or potential violent subjects, as stated earlier. If they see a dog barking, a crazy Belgian or a German Shepherd, they're probably not going to want to get bit by it. So drug seizures of this year compared to last year, and back to 2016, we're looking at about an estimated 40 drug seizures this year, as where it was around 45 last year. With the legalization of marijuana, you would expect a huge decrease in the amount of drug seizures, but working with Mid-Mo Drug Task Force and what we found on the streets shows that illegal substances are heavily trafficked through this area, and there are criminals that live in the city of Osage Beach that deliver, traffic, and use controlled substances. It should be noted that even though marijuana became legal, there's still city usage of other illegal substances.
We're actually only 10 arrests behind, or 10 seizures behind last year in marijuana. You know,
So
last year, or doesn't count this year like it did last year.
Continuing on drug arrest, a lot of these statistics are hard to really determine the way that our CAD nodes work, the way that we search them. If we charge somebody with a crime, there could be more than one subjects arrested, or they can see different additional crimes added on to them. So it's a little bit hard to get it, but we do our criminal analysis, put together some hard work over some long hours to find some stuff. So not including investigations, property recovered where we found substances. There have been over 405 estimated drug seizures since 2016 in the city of Osage Beach. Illegal contraband doesn't sit still, it's constantly moving through the entire area. We have a major highway that runs through here, that runs through Jeff City, Columbia. We're looking at about half so far, according to our criminal analysis, maybe a little bit more of what Columbia's statistics are this year in drug seizures and drug arrest. And they have 160,000 estimated population compared to ours. Now that's ever changing. They were way higher. I don't know if that's with the change of marijuana laws or what it is, or if they just didn't output those, because obviously we both know Columbia probably will be a little bit higher, but it still should be noted that it is pretty hefty in this area. Continuing on from that, estimation of canine requests and involvement. We had to change this up a little bit yesterday in the last couple of days, jumbling all the information together. But according to our estimated statistics, we're as high as we ever been for canine requests since 2016. At least 28 to 28 or 23 to 28 requests. This number is definitely lower because we had an issue with our dispatch of entering that into CAD notes initially. It's hard to keep track of all that stuff, of how many times we can request canines. Requests may be higher due to police-initiated contacts. So when it comes to interdiction on the roads as a patrol officer, finding drugs on the road requires officers to initiate that contact. We have great officers here that have been, pushing forward, trying to do drug interdiction work and locating illegal substances that will further push us to a lowering of drug use in this area. But as we know, that's always going to be an ongoing battle in the United States. Continuing on to drug interdiction, there's a little bit of a case law that a canine would assist with us. Arizona versus Gant is a case that occurred where officers arrested an individual, last name Gant, due to him being suspended, having a suspended driver's license. The officers searched the vehicle afterwards, searched it to arrest. Supreme Court found that they can't do that. They can only, depending on where you arrest them, you can only search compartments or things like that. We have to have probable cause in order to search a vehicle. And sometimes it's hard to obtain. We'll have reasonable suspicion and all the clues, but we won't be able to push any further to actually get into the vehicle to find those substances. A canine just blows that away. You have a canine run around the vehicle, it alerts on the vehicle, and that automatically gives us probable cause to search the vehicle. Therefore, we can find arrests. I can attest myself that we requested canines, and we have that, that reasonable suspicion that there's drugs in that vehicle. There's prior usage with that subject. We know who they are. They have track marks. We know, but we can't because a canine won't come out. So how it works is, as I say, they sniff the airspace. for the odor of a substance. And another thing that is, could be really useful to the city is that it can minimize lawsuits. If a canine is used properly, it'll further assist officers in their endeavors to locate illegal substances and their reasoning behind a search. So when these people want to sue the city and say, well, he didn't have probable cause to search that vehicle, a canine it gives us a stronger defense in court that can assist us in lawsuits. So a big reason to purchase for our city is that it's going to be ours. Response time is going to be faster. Often other agency canines do not respond when an officer needs one. It'll be ours, as I stated. Longevity of a canine is usually they're obtained around the age of 1. Canines are utilized around to the age of 9. So that gives us about 8 years of usage out of the dog. Training supplies and cost. Grants often come. There's a couple different grants that I'll go over later that can assist us, and they're constantly moving through and assist in helping pay for a canine. Equipment's going to be looking about $2,000 to $3,000 for body armor, leash, tracking device, miscellaneous. Housing is going to be outside kennel and transport crate. It's going to be like $200 to $300. Vehicle equipment, which is going to be canine deployment. It's a button that you hit, it automatically deploys the canine, say an individual is attacking me and I need the dog immediately. I can get the dog out of it. Or if there's a heat problem, the AC is not working, there's going to be a heat alert that'll open the door that allow the canine to get out safely. And a cage. That's going to be about $2,500 to $5,500. And the canine initial training for the canine and the training of the canine handler is going to be about $7,000 to $15,000. We're looking at a couple different places. One of those is going to be Tri-State Canine in Ohio, and I will touch base with that here momentarily. So upkeep with the canine is going to be certified through Missouri Police Canine Association every year, along with North American Police Work Dog Association. We're going to have to pay for monthly food, occasional overtime for the officer and the canine, occasional veterinarian updates. They have to go to the clinic. Wear and tear items such as canine rewards. When they smell a substance, they associate that with a reward, and there's wear and tear items that go with that. So Tri-State Canine Ohio is one place we're heavily looking at. It's 5-week training with housing included for the officer. They fit the canine to the handler, their personality to it. They provide the canine services for the state of Missouri along with many other states. They provide service to the United States Secret Service, the United States Army, Special Forces, many police forces. It's a high dollar, but it's low liability. They have a lot of experience in it. They import dogs from Europe, and they have Belgian Malinois, Dutch Shepherds, German Shepherds. How will the dog be purchased? Our hope is to use fundraisers, community-driven fundraisers, along with grants, and then we're also going to request that the city assist with this. A couple of those grants are Justin Delivers Hope. That was a grant that we can apply for and hopefully get. Their son OD'd off of opiates, and now they assist in giving officers and police department canines. National Canine Training Center, and other grants that may appear. And that's really all I got. Yes, sir.
What happens, is there one officer? One officer. One officer, it's just a bond between one officer and one dog, right?
Yes.
Making sure on that. What happens if an officer's out on vacation, there's just no response from the canine?
Dog gets vacation too.
He's off duty. He's off vacation, so they're all on duty or off duty at the same time. Yep. The dog gets retired to them at that point?
That's up to you guys as the board.
You could get trained too, Justin.
So our last two dogs that we had when they retired, AJ, which was our first dog, he was retired, and our Bud, our airport manager at the time, we retired him because our handler wasn't gonna take a new dog and have the old dog at the same time. And then when Axel retired, he retired with the officer and he left.
Well, the K-9 and the, operation and maintenance expense and the capital expense is in the budget.
Along with the vehicle under capital as well. That's the additional vehicles. That's why there's 3 this year instead of normally 2 under capital.
I will just, one last comment, and I'm done. My brother's in law enforcement, works for Homeland Security now. He says they are absolutely invaluable out there. So,
So real quick, I had a couple of things. One, I have no concerns with having a K-9 officer and dog, of course. But question around, why did we not have someone interested in doing it once that dog retired with that officer?
That was one of the issues. And then the actual use, we were actually back in that time, the dog was being used more outside our agency than it was.
That's what I recall. And so I find that very interesting that one of the reasons we're doing this now is because those folks don't have time to help us out. Is that kind of what I heard?
Pretty much.
Okay. I assume we'll remember that for a while.
How was that?
Yeah.
Is that a fair statement? We'll remember that for a while?
It is a fair statement.
Uh-huh.
Camden County's dogs aren't used for drugs anymore because it's only certified in marijuana, which this dog won't be.
Whoops.
Not exactly
So,
valuable anymore.
and
That's county.
that caused a lot of dogs to be taken out of service when
Because they haven't
the
any
new law.
further
Yeah, 'cause
training.
there's some debate out there whether you can retrain the dog, train a dog off of marijuana versus on it, but, Eldon has a dog.
Yeah, they have a new dog.
Miller County, it's just whenever you need it, you want it in a more timely manner. You know, if it's on the, what I'll call the north end of Miller County and we need it, we only have a certain amount of time for them to get here to utilize it on drug sniffs.
Another thing when it comes to outside agency assist and other agencies assisting us and us assisting them, for example, Mid-Missouri Drug Task Force, drugs are constantly moving through the entire lake area. If we help them, they help us, it still eliminates trafficking as a whole. A lot of the people that we arrest here or do search warrants on, they move to St. Louis, they go to Eldon, they go to Miller County, Morgan County, Rocky Mount. Drugs are constantly moving through different areas because nobody sits still. So it will definitely assist us, but it'll assist all of the Lake of the Ozarks as well. Them stopping Miller County finding drugs and stopping drug traffickers over there will definitely assist us over here. So it's a prominent lake area thing as well, but yeah.
Will you be the can officer or do we have somebody who wants to do it?
That should be determined.
That is not much of an answer.
He's got a very good chance.
There's a pecking order,
There's,
and you know, you gotta sign up
there's a
for it.
procedure we have to go through. Now,
Now we're getting there.
do I think that from straw polling, Austin's probably the only one that's interested that would, because they have to be here minimum.
I was just
2
making
years.
sure we did the work, goes on, was to have a plan and have it.
No, we have somebody that's very interested in here, sitting in here with us. So.
Yeah, we got the answer.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, excellent presentation.
Appreciate your passion.
911. The only thing I have to note in that is you'll see an increase in the on-the-go ITI bill. That's just it's an annual increase. It's here lately has been 10% or more. So that's noted in there.
Please disregard the big blank spot under personnel. I will fix that. That didn't
Yes.
populate my Excel sheet that I've already got marked.
In the capital that's in there is the computer equipment that's part of a ongoing maintenance upgrade that they split the payment in 2 years, so there'll be an increase in that every year. And then the office furniture is the dispatch council being carried over from this year. furniture.
Do we offer any kind of premium pay for a trainer?
Yes. We're kind of shoring that up because of the training situation, but yes, they do, once you're certified, there is pay incentive.
How many can we have?
How many trainers can you have? As many as, they can
My
all be
goal-
Many
trainers.
as you know.
They can all be
let's bet.
trainers if
No,
we could
my
get
goal
there.
is, I don't care if everybody in that office is a trainer. If it takes you 2 years to get trained, then that's an expectation. So we should be hiring them like 2 years, get your trainer. That's just automatically next step up, next skill. We should have every one of those dispatchers in there being able to train. Now, who trains who and what, then that's the department, but it's no more voluntary. It's gonna be expected. We think it takes a couple years to get you there or however long, then once you do, you get a pay increase, but it should be expected. That way we always have access to trainers, and that's kind of a bottleneck right now.
Like,
But we're changing it.
So a question about having a part-time dispatcher. That's kind of a new concept, I think, is that right?
That
currently,
was one of my ads. We have had part-time dispatchers, we've utilized it because we've never been full, so we were just using that bucket of money to have anybody that would work hours, and they didn't want full-time. Well, it works out fine, and we're down to one, and so I told Todd, I don't know why, we got a part-timer. When and if we get full, it'll just be less part-time, the bucket of money.
Just another resource.
Exactly.
Yeah, are you looking to add more vehicles this year? I'm not sure if that.
yes, that was in the police.
I thought it
That was
was.
back in the police.
Do you know how many?
Total of three. Two are replacements, one is an addition for K9.
So,
is it a different kind of vehicle? It's an additional vehicle to the fleet?
Yes, because we have to equip it and it will be strictly for K9 purpose only.
the whole back end is
The whole
specialized for dogs.
I've never seen one that wasn't. They're all.
No, that's fine, I guess, I don't recall reducing the fleet when we lost it, but maybe we did.
We have, I think we've dropped
Not only
2
that
cars.
one, as far as,
2 or 3.
3.
over the years.
Yeah, it's got to be like an SUV.
Page 53 is emergency management.
The only big change in emergency management is a capital item. It is a rapid warn system for alerting our storm sirens. Basically just upgrades the controller along with, it's a computer and software program that will actually also allow us to, the dispatchers, where they don't have to physically activate the sirens. When the National Weather Service sends out a tornado warning and it puts up the polygon, if we're in that polygon, it will activate the sirens. So it will also eliminate the, right now we activate our sirens if there's a tornado warning in Camden or Miller County. So it could be in Camden County, but it's going through Richland and has nothing to do with us. We're still activating our sirens, getting everybody in an uproar and, panicking and such. This will eliminate that. We will also have the ability to override that if we need to, and we can activate them for whatever reasons, just like we can now. Gives us better diagnostics of our storm sirens, what's actually working. Like right now, they come down twice a year, do maintenance checks on the sirens. This will tell us if we've got drivers that aren't working or a speaker that's not working on the siren, or now that physically have to come down and do it. This will allow us to know that during one of our weekly tests that we do. We do a live test once a month, and then we do silent test every Wednesday. So that's our request for capital and emergency management.
Ambulance is last one.
Last one. The only thing, ambulance is
Page 79 is the reference.
it's another capital item. They're just wanting to replace the iPads with rugged tablets with their more compatible to our current software that we're running now. And that's it for that. And I do have one more topic to bring up, and it's under vehicles for the replacement of the new ambulance. It's actually on the capital replacement plan for 2026 to replace Medic 8, which is our 2015 ambulance. If we wait till 2026 to order it, we would not receive it until 28 or 29 or mid-29, early 30. If we would order, we've been in contact with the company that we just bought our last one from. If we would order it today, we would not see it till mid or end of 2026. And the pricing we got a price quote that we paid $243.9 for this one. It would go up to $375 is what the quote's up to for a twin to the one that we have today. So
Todd approached me about this and two competing factors you keep in mind. And we do not have to solve this tonight, but it's something that Todd to bring back. First and foremost, the board needs to be conscientious of tying future boards to future monies in that case. However, my question to Todd was, okay, what's our risk adverse to ordering something and canceling should, we get to 2025 or 2026, doing the 26 budget and cash isn't there or whatever. What is the recourse for canceling an order? Or does it mean we have to take a payment? But that also doesn't necessarily tie. Yes, you're tying the board that our intent is to order it, but how solid is that intent? So, or do we just risk that, hey, things can change and maybe we wouldn't have been ready for 2026 and we cross that bridge. So I said, the board really just needs to give direction, not vote or, just what direction, but it's really how much risk you want to take. What's our consequences if we do not? I don't know that you ever got that answer.
No,
it's like,
our vendor that we talked to, or
we don't have to
we
write
bought
the
our
check.
last one from, we can order it and we can get out of it. And they would
Somebody
probably
might
be able to
better
sell
remember
them out on
deadlines.
that if it's that way. Obviously, we're still gonna have to go out for the RFP and everything else with the price of it.
So you currently have a 2015
2015.
and a 2022?
Two.
Okay. Is the 2015, what's the condition of the box?
It's good, it's a new box.
What about remount?
Something we can look at.
I don't know if the board's aware of this, but what you can do, and I did it all the time when I was at the fire service. I bought better quality ambulances and good quality boxes. The box is the back portion. And I would take in, after so many miles or so many times to replace it, I would replace the chassis and just jack the box up and put a new chassis underneath it. And generally, if you get a good box, okay, and that's why you need to look at the box and make sure the box is in good shape. If you get a good box, you can usually get a chassis for about half the price. At least that's what it was.
Right.
But also that was when the ambulances were running me $80,000. But anyway, it's an option, and we can get.
We bought a remount box. It's been several years ago, but we had some issues with it, but it was, I wasn't involved in that purchase at the time.
But the main thing is you've got to check your box. You got to make sure that your welds are all good and all that. If you don't get a good box to start with, and that's why when I bought them, I paid a little bit more, knowing that I was going to get 2 cycles out of it. And if that's it, then there's that option. Each time you still probably are going to have to do something proactive in advance, because it's not the box is probably not the problem, it's the chassis. So you still may have to do the same thing, and we still may have to buy into it, this far out. But it's an option that I think you'll look at.
I have Tommy reach out to him and see.
Is this the only vendor?
No.
I mean, that seems
But
crazy.
when,
It's
when
4
we,
years out.
when we bought the last one, the other vendor
Two budgets, I
the
think.
other two vendors that bid on it was same timeframe.
I would like to, I hate to put extra work on it, but it seems like I might take like 3 or 4 other vendors and just see, because it's been 4 years, that's like space shuttle type stuff.
That's not uncommon. Emergency services, I've talked to people that have ordered fire trucks and are ordering them 3 and 4 and 5 years in
It's
advance.
the same thing with dump trucks.
Yeah,
It's the same
we're
thing
running
with
into
anything.
Now, we're seeing it with police cars with the Fords.
It's worth
We
probably.
were told that we cannot order 2024 Ford utilities because they're still trying to fulfill the 2023 orders that are out there. So we have to go to other vendors or options, to see what else is out there.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I'm gonna tell everybody, on a personal note, thank you for the kind words to pass my mom. I will be here Thursday night. I'll have my phone with me, but I'm gonna be doing, things down in Springfield the next few days, funeral is Friday. So, very nice of you all. Thank you very much.
Okay. One suggestion for Thursday night and next Monday night, can we start at 5:30?
Works for me.
You can start 3:30, I hurt my feelings.
I want to go any afternoon when her.
We can update our.
Is there anybody opposed to 5:30 Thursday?
Well, Kelly's not here. I mean,
I don't think she works.
She's
that
not
Friday.
coming Thursday either.
oh, she's not coming.
No, she was
Thursday.
gonna miss tonight and Thursday.
Oh,
And I'm
What about Bob?
Bob's at.
No, Bob was just, he had some commitment, he said, I will be there, I'll be late, but evidently but no, I don't know Bob not to be there
5:30.
Thursday.
All right, there we go.
Okay. I'll repost it.
All right.
So it's tonight, Thursday night, Monday.
I like to it's 3:30.
All right, do we have a motion to
Baby
adjourn?
steps. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
when we start,
The second. All those in favor?
All right.
I.
Hey, Todd, I have a question about the dog.